It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Oh, we have a good panel for you. Alex Wilhelm is here from TechCrunch, Larry Magid from connectsafely.org, and it's the return of a guy who hosted a show for us for years. We lost him to the dark side. He's back from Intel. Ryan Shroud is here. We're going to talk about, of course, the Qualcomm event and what's going on with CPUs, what Intel's plans are, what Qualcomm's trying to do. We'll also talk about Cruise, GM's self-driving vehicles, which are now banned in California. Cruise says, you know what, we're just going to quit the whole thing. And the new UK law that means you will have to identify yourself and your age before you use a website. The online safety bill is now law. All that and more coming up on a very fun Twit. Stay here.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 951, recorded Sunday, October 29th, 2023. Cali sober. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Palo Alto Networks. Their zero trust for OT security solution can help your business achieve 351% ROI over 5 years. To learn more, find the link in the show description or visit paloaltonetworks.com. And by our friends at IT Pro TV, now ACI Learning. ACI's new solution, Insights, assists in identifying and fixing skill gaps in your IT teams. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. With listeners, you'll receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Just complete the form, and then based on your team size, you'll get the proper quote, a discount tailored to your needs. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. It's kind of old timers week this week. This is great. I don't mean old in age, just long-time colleagues. It's great to see Alex Wilhelm here from TechCrunch. Hi, Alex.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Your startup battlefield hat there. That's great. The TechCrunch startup battlefield, legendary.
I get $5 if I wear TechCrunch attire on the show. So
everything counts. Absolutely.
Yes.
That you could take that $5, go down and get half a hamburger at the East End. It'll be great.
1/3 of a hamburger.
A third of a hamburger. I was in town, as you know, visiting my mom, and I went with my sister to have a hamburger. She said, they're really expensive. I said, honey, I live in Northern California. Nothing's expensive here. Yes. There's quite a difference. Great to see you, Alex. Thank you. How's the baby? How's
Good
Liza?
Liza's lovely. The baby is 10 months old and cruising around on every surface you can find.
Holy cow.
If it's sharp, hot, on fire,
Yeah.
or potentially dangerous, she just crawls right towards it and tries to stick all of her fingers into it.
Perfect.
You
want a child
I didn't realize
like that. That's good.
Okay. But no one told me that parenting is just walking slowly behind a child as she crawls around your house saying, don't touch that.
That's a little hard.
Don't touch that.
Yeah. But you do want to, I think it's important to have a kid who's exploratory and interested in the world. I think that's a much better thing than somebody who just lies there and says, can you turn on the TV, Dad?
Yes. But sometimes I would like to have a weekend to rest.
No,
wait a
minute. Did I not warn you?
Poor.
Did I not tell you if you have kids, that's it? I didn't tell you that part.
No one can get you sorted out to understand that your life is over.
We all lie. We say, oh, it's going to be so amazing. We lie.
Right.
We lie. Hey, let's say hi to Larry Magid. He is the CEO and president of connectsafely.org. You'll soon be signing their internet contract, Alex. Hi, Larry. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Leo. I guess we are old friends, so to speak.
Yeah, you and I are older and older.
We're waging one. Older and older,
Yes.
But still having fun.
People may note that you have a yellow Western Electric telephone in the shot.
I do. They came out with new models about every 15 years, too.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
They were really exciting when AT&T would come out with remember the touch tone phone, Leo, when that came out? Boy, that was a thrill.
I always wanted a Princess phone. But I didn't get one of those. No.
Maybe someday you could get one.
Yeah. They actually sell them. You can.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm really pleased to welcome back to our microphones longtime host on This Week in Computer Hardware. He was the founder and editor-in-chief at PC Perspective, PCper.com, and for the last 5 years has been working at Intel. Now free at last, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Shrout. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me on. It's I did PC Perspective or some online review format for like 18 years. I did have Shrout Research, did consulting for like the last 2 or 3 years before I joined Intel, but then I kind of fell into the void for almost 5 years, and popping my head up and seeing what's going on in the world, I guess.
I'm glad to see you back in the real world. So many people that we work with end up going to work for Intel or Microsoft or Apple. And I'm just thinking of a few people that we work with who went to Apple that you never hear from them again. It's like they just disappear. And you and Alan Malventano, who is also on This Week in Computer Hardware, both kind of emerged out of the Intel, the maw of Intel. Alan's working for Solidigm, which is a Intel spun off Solidigm to SK Hynix, but so he's still in the biz. But it's great to talk to him every once in a while, and I'm thrilled to get you back on our panels.
Well, I appreciate it. It was an interesting 5 years. Definitely learned a ton. A lot of smart people over there, but
it must be amazing to work there. Yeah,
I mean, I went from a company of 7 to 107,000 in one day, right? Mm-hmm. And you learn a lot. You don't have a choice. And I was fortunate enough to get to work on some cool stuff, competitive analysis and helping launch the Arc Graphics brand and products was really cool. So yeah.
Does it feel though now like you're a little more free to speak, or did they make you sign a paper that says I am never going to talk honestly about anything again? I mean, but
no. I mean, any knowledge I have on roadmaps and future products and all that stuff, obviously I can't say.
No, I wouldn't expect that. But for instance, I want to get your thoughts on the Qualcomm event, which you were at this week.
Yeah. So I, free to talk about my opinions on anything.
Good. No longer constrained by a corporate parent. Yeah. You can put your fingers in any plug socket you want to. It's all on you.
Much like Alex's daughter, I just walk around putting my fingers in whatever's hot or electrified and see what happens.
Here's a story that kind of was a surprise, an almost immediate U-turn, if you will, for GM's Cruise self-driving vehicles. Literally a month or two after they got permission from the California Public Utilities Commission to run unhindered in San Francisco and all of California, day and night, without a driver. They have basically thrown in the towel now because it all started with an accident. A vehicle driven by a human hit a pedestrian in San Francisco. The pedestrian was knocked into the road and run over by a robo-taxi, which then drove another, I think, 60 feet with the human underneath the car trapped. 20 feet at speeds of up to 7 miles an hour. When the California Department of Motor Vehicles began to investigate, it turned out the Cruise vehicle, of course, had video of the incident. But they claimed that the video ends prematurely, when in fact it didn't. They withheld evidence from the DMV. During the meeting, the department was shown, this is from the DMV, the department was shown video footage of the accident captured by the AV's onboard cameras. The video footage presented to the department ended with the AV's initial stop following the hard braking maneuver. You see, Your Honor, we stopped. Footage of the subsequent movement of the AV to perform a pullover maneuver was not shown to the department, and Cruise did not disclose that any additional movement of the vehicle had occurred after the initial stop. The department only learned of the AV's subsequent movement via discussion with another government agency, which we believe was the NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. The department requested Cruise provide a copy of the video with additional footage, which was received October 13th. This is a TechCrunch story, so we can trust it. Alex Wilhelm, Kirsten Korosek writing.
Kirsten's amazing. But what's really amazing about the story? There's lots to talk about here, but there's a phrase in politics that it's not the crime, it's the cover-up.
Right.
And I mean, just talk about a self-inflicted wound here. Like, things happened, own up to it. We can talk about the tech behind the decision of the car to try to pull over after it had stopped and the whole situation. But I mean, by omitting that footage, they, I think, made themselves an enemy of a local regulator. That's an incredibly important part of their business in the state. So just, did they think they was going to get away with it? I mean, I just don't understand the logic behind the decision there.
I've actually never hit a pedestrian when driving a car manually back in the old days before I had a Tesla, when I actually used to drive my car. But it seems to me that if I did, I would just stop. I wouldn't, drag them 20 feet.
What I've heard,
the algorithm,
we haven't heard from Cruz, is that there's no cameras pointing down like that. They didn't know.
And would there be an algorithm that said, if I'm dragging a pedestrian, what should I do? I mean, that's an algorithm they probably didn't think of putting in there.
Right.
A valid point, but I don't think the algorithm was, if you hit a person, don't worry, keep going. I think it was they stopped, and then they didn't have the next piece of code or something along those lines to make it function properly. And that's why it was a learning opportunity for the AV industry, because keeping in mind, they didn't start this accident, a human driver did.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that we don't cast too many aspersions on the technology, even though there wasn't fault. They should be blamed for that, but not the whole thing. Anyways, it's just the fact that they tried to cover it up.
Well, it seems to me, since there was a human driver also involved, that we should ban all human-driven cars as well, because clearly we've proven how dangerous they really. And in fact, as everyone knows, thousands of people do die every year as a result of human error. So the question really becomes, what can we do to not only make these better, but to, in some ways, what should our standards be when it comes to robocars hurting people? I mean, should they be the same as humans, in which case we're nowhere near there?
Well, I want to say you joked that we should ban all human drivers, but actually I think unironically, yes, because does anyone recall being 16 and driving? Were you making great choices in a multi-thousand-pound vehicle going at speeds on highways? I wasn't. And I'm just in awe of the amount of deaths we allow to happen at the hands of human drivers. And we just go, well, what can you do? And then this happens and we all kind of have this moment. But to me, the accident isn't the main issue. It's the way the business operated. But I agree, Larry. Let's just ban all human drivers as fast as we can. Much better.
There are arguments in favor of it.
I should mention that Kristen writes in her story that GM says that it shared the entire video with the DMV. The DMV, when asked about that, says we stand by our assessment. So there is some dispute over whether Cruz gave that entire video or they only gave him a shortened version. But let's stand aside from the cover-up, if there was a cover-up. I think you raise an interesting point, Larry, because humans run over people every single day.
Right. Doesn't make the news in many cases.
Yeah. By the way, GM's taking this so seriously, they've now paused, as of day before yesterday, all driverless operations across the U.S. So they're paused in California by the DMV, but they're stopping everywhere, probably for public relations reasons, right, Ryan? You were in PR. Well, how do you make a bad thing worse?
Sometimes you have to overswing your movement, right, to make sure that you get the point across. But I think this is. I think when self-driving vehicles began, we had to assume that something like this was going to happen. And if we move the cover up off to the side, then you say, how do you learn from it and improve and make it better, right? Is there need to be cameras under the car that maybe never existed before, right? And is there part of the logic of what happens if you hit a thing versus a person? Do you react differently? Because we can say we want to ban all human drivers, but I tell you, out here in the Midwest, that's not going to work very well because we don't have self-driving cars on any of our roads. So if I want to go to the grocery store, I still have to drive. But like this is just one of those steps, unfortunate things that's going to have to happen, and we hope we learn from it. Everything gets better and continue down this path. I would really, really hate for development on this to stop, right, or slow down significantly because of the accident.
Cruz operates or did operate driverless fleets besides San Francisco, Phoenix, Houston, Austin, Dallas, and Miami. And it was hoping to go nationwide. You're right, maybe not in Hebron, but was going nationwide, probably in metros. Yeah.
And I feel the same. I've got the full self-driving on my Model 3. And I kind of feel the same.
You don't?
Routinely.
Here's the thing. You use it on highways. Do you use it on surface streets?
Yes,
you do.
But I've got my eyes open. I've got my foot hovering over the brake, just in case something goes wrong.
Is it reliable on surface streets? Because this is where, by the way, Tesla differs from General Motors, Ford, and their self-driving vehicles. Those companies, Mercedes, all work on mapped freeways alone. Only Tesla works on city streets.
It's never failed to stop at a red light or a stop sign. It has made.
Although you remember that it didn't stop at a red light for Elon. He had to.
I'm talking about mine. Well,
intervene.
He probably had an advanced version of it that he doesn't.
Yeah,
ship
that's right.
to the
He
public.
did. He had the new version.
But you know, it's still buggy. But I have to say, it's far less buggy now than it was when I got it. How many months ago? Used to make right turns from the left lane. It would accelerate into a turn, and they fixed a lot of the things.
Well, and that's the argument, by the way, for letting these cars get out there, is that's how you learn.
Right. I mean, I still think that drivers have to be responsible and watch. I mean, the way I look at it is, on the downside, you know, every driver has to worry about making a mistake, and they have to worry about other drivers. And now I have to worry about my car making a mistake. So there's 3 points of failure: me, the car, and the other driver. But on the other hand, it's also an assistant. It's also something, you know, it's got 12 eyes. I only have 2 eyes. So there are advantages. But I really agree with Alex. I think that long term, we are going to look back at human beings driving cars, and we're going to say, what were they thinking? Why were they letting those, you know, irrational, emotional, immature people, and by the way, I include my age as part of the immaturity, not just a 16-year-old. Why are they, or senile people, as I may be on the verge of becoming, you know, why do they let them pilot a 3,000-pound weapon through the streets of America? I mean, I think that will be what we'll talk about at some point in the future.
Yeah, hard to agree with that. Also, like, there's people like myself who are not very young or very old, but are also just very distracted all the time. And I'm just not a great driver, which is why my spouse, who is a great driver, does all of our driving. But on the safety thing, it's amazing how incremental some of this can feel, because we went from a very 5-speed manual Volvo S40 with no features to a relatively modern Subaru. And now we do have lane assist and rear view cameras and all this stuff. And our car like beeps at us like, hey, you need to stay in your lane and all this. And it's like night and day, and it's only about a 10-year time frame. So when you think about
do you feel like it's better, that's safer for you? I mean,
well, you should hear my wife shout at it when
but you got a baby in the back. I mean, you really have a higher level of need to be safe, and you prefer the driver assist features. Well,
I mean, Leo, I've driven the car once across a parking lot.
So you're the wrong.
No one.
You really are a bad driver.
But well, I grew up in a town where you had to drive. Moved to Chicago.
Why are you
San
such
Francisco.
a bad driver?
Because I don't know about you, but I live inside my head, and I'm thinking about, like, you know, a book I want to write, and then I'm like, oh shit, stop sign, you know, like I'm not going to be drafted into F1. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I look forward to the days when I don't have to drive. Cruise says that their vehicle did what it's supposed to do. The Cruise autonomous vehicles are without minus the person trapped underneath. Cruise by the way, this is horrific. The woman was severely injured by the initial accident, and ultimately even more injured by being dragged under the Cruise, which led to her death. We don't know why she died. Cruise's autonomous vehicles are designed to perform such a maneuver after collision to minimize safety risks. Hard braking, slowly pull over. That's what you're taught to do, of course. But they say they're doing an analysis to identify potential enhancements to the AV's response to this kind of extremely rare event.
But Leo, I'm programmed to pull over in
that's what you're supposed to do.
But I also have common sense. If I hit a pedestrian, I think I would stop.
Yeah, but you don't see. Here's the thing:
artificial intelligence is, in some ways, is not as good as.
I don't think it's the programming. I think it's the sensors. The car only knows what it's told. I'm sure if it had a camera and they knew there was something under the wheels, it would not, or it could be programmed not to. But it didn't know. That's the problem. I think it's just.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we have, but I think, do we all agree that to some extent this is moral panic because it's a new technology? Yep. We're holding it to a higher standard than we hold ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And does it mean that the DMV is acting incorrectly here, or no?
No.
I don't think it's acting incorrectly to put a pause on it. If they decide that they're never going to do it again because of this one incident, then probably yes.
Yeah, we should be clear that the DMV didn't say that's it, you're done. They said that you're done until further notice.
Right.
So
sure.
And Waymo is still on the road, right? I believe Waymo is still driving
they
cars.
did not shut down Waymo.
Fees.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a targeted action in one place against one AV company. But I on the stopping the progress, we're not probably going to see that given the scale of the investment that GM has put into the Cruise program. Kirsten, who wrote that article that we had on the screen a little bit ago, sent me GM's recent earnings report, and I was going through it, and we found out that they're spending about $250 million a month on this project. It's about $750 a quarter in contra profits. It's a lot of money. So they're really betting on this being the future of GM. Even as some American manufacturers get a little skeevy with their EV plans, this is going ahead. So I mean, bring on the future. I just hope that we can do it with the very bare minimum of stories like this, because it slows down progress, and as Leo points out, it can kill people.
Yeah. But so can humans. And if in the best of all worlds, no humans would be driving, they would be all autonomous vehicles, right? And that would be much safer.
I'm sure it would be if you had all autonomous vehicles.
Yeah. I think once you get to that end state, this is something that even before I joined Intel was something that we talked about a lot was, you have all the cameras and sensors and everything, and you're doing all that processing locally, right? And then they can communicate with other autonomous vehicles on the road. You can plan ahead, like they could depend on other vehicle sensors. Like there's all kinds of ways that this becomes better than having any human touch a steering wheel again.
I mean, look at aviation. Planes don't crash into each other, and they used to occasionally. I mean, they do on the ground sometimes, but once they're in the air, they pretty much don't crash into each other because the technology is such that they can communicate with each other, both the humans who are driving them and the planes themselves. And that's made them very close to 100% safe once in the air.
Yeah. But one thing I'm curious about, Ryan, so you were at Intel for a long time. Intel just spun out Mobileye. Mobileye is working on all this AV stuff. Why would Intel seemingly slowly move away from the AV tech side of things?
I mean, if you look at what they said when they were spinning off Mobileye, it was not about the technology. Mobileye has been very successful and a profitable, part of what Intel's portfolio was. It's more of a financial decision.
It strikes me actually that what's going on at Intel is they're focusing. They also, as we mentioned, spun off Solidigm, which is a great company with a great product. Not because it was a bad company.
They sold the Nook division.
Yeah, they're trying to focus. And they probably need to.
Wow.
So this is the problem. And in fact, this is really a technology issue in all areas, which is there's the end state, which is going to be a better world. There's the state we came from, which was, 50, what is it? There's more than 1 million auto fatalities globally every year. 1 million every year. In the U.S. alone, 50 to 60,000 every year. So we'd love to get to this end state where there are none and the vehicles are driving themselves and it's much safer. But to get there, you go through this disruption that is always problematic and always, difficult for society to go through. That's kind of where we are right now. And it's not, by the way, this is not, in every area of technology, you see this.
I'm glad you said that because obviously AI is another area where we get a lot of moral panics going on. And, the question is, we can envision a utopia, we can envision a dystopia. But in the meantime, we're going to go through a lot of tribulation as it matures. And you're right, Leo. I mean, going back to the camera, when Kodak introduced the first handheld camera, people were afraid of what implications it would have on society. There's a lot of fear around it. And I think that's, those moral panics happen with every social media. I mean, my God, when MySpace was out there in 2004, that's why I started Connect Safely, because there was literally predator panic. I mean, it was To Catch a Predator on television every Thursday night, scaring the bejesus out of every parent in America.
Stranger danger.
And what's ironic about it is by being paranoid about something that happened very rarely, they failed to focus on things that actually happen all the time, like wellness and bullying and, all sorts of bad things.
And the fact that most predators are family members or people the child knows very well, not strangers.
Right. So
if you turn your eye away from that, you're missing the most important thing.
Right. And I raise that not so much to derail the conversation in that direction, but just to point out that there are almost every technology that evolves, at some point we get scared about it. maybe we should in some ways. I mean, I often wonder what would have happened if Henry Ford had, a safety council back in whatever year he started automating the production of automobiles, whether they might have anticipated some of the bad things that have happened as a result of the car. And maybe the cars would be safer and cities would be cleaner and we'd have less congestion if they had put some more thought into it back then. I don't know.
It's an interesting conundrum because we want the end state. We want to get to that safer place. But how much are we willing to sacrifice to get there? It's really interesting. It feels like it usually works out. I mean, that during the disruption, it's difficult and there are problems. But in the end, it's going to work out. Do you think it's the same for AI?
Yeah. By the way, pharmacies, how many people die or get sick as a result of taking drugs? I mean, prescription drugs that are designed to cure you. I mean, almost every drug comes with a warning, right? My favorite ones are the ones that allow you to grow hair because and then they tell you it might affect your, it might give you ED. So what they're saying is that you're going to be better looking and attracting more people, but you won't be able to do anything with it. But no, seriously, I mean, should we stop all pharmaceutical research? Because
Alex, what's under that hat? Just show me real quiquely.
No, I mean, you can tell that I'm not taking any. The reason I'm wearing this hat is that my hair grows out sideways now, not on top. So I look like a cheese wedge. So
you won't need as much Viagra based on the research that I've read.
Shooting for none, hopefully.
I did not know. I did not know that was a side effect. That's not good.
Can I go back though? Leo, can I go back to something you said? Because I want to quibble very gently with your logic there. You were talking about how much will we pay as a cost to get from today to that end state we want when we do have all self-driving cars and everyone's safe. I wonder if the technology today is actually less safe per mile driven by AVs than humans. So I wonder if there's actually going to be a consistent cost to this technology's improvement. And I don't think there is.
It's funny because we went through this on This Week in Google. We looked up the stats, and the problem is it's apples and oranges because we know how many incidents are caused by self-driving vehicles, and we know how many deaths are caused by human-driven vehicles. And I guess you can do it per mile, but it's difficult to compare the two because incidents does not equal deaths. All I know is we came up with the idea on This Week in Google that perhaps humans were safer than self-driving vehicles. And then I got a lot of emails saying, well, you misunderstand or misinterpret, or it's not exactly as it seems. So I don't know what the answer is on that. And maybe that's part of the problem is that we don't have very good metrics to figure this stuff out. But it is
Tesla claims to have them, but they've been Elon's always claiming.
Yeah, I don't believe anything Elon says about anything. I don't believe anything
he says, right? Yeah.
Some of this comes down to, it brings us to the Techno-optimist manifesto. Mark Andreessen wrote this horrific, 5,200 word high school essay encouraging us to stop worrying about trust and safety and think of the children, think of the future, not the past. He is arguing, of course, he's a venture capitalist, and he's arguing that we shouldn't regulate this stuff. Growth is progress, he says, leading to vitality, expansion of life, increased knowledge, higher well-being. Everything good is downstream of growth. So his argument is stop trying to regulate because you're just hurting us in the end. But I don't think it's as clean cut as that. Is it?
No. That was a kind of a prevailing attitude in Silicon Valley for many, many years. And actually, companies are beginning to push back on that. Even Mark Zuckerberg has said that he thinks regulation of social media is necessary. But on the other hand,
I often wonder if he says that because he has to at this point, right?
Or he says it because he's got the resources.
It's regulatory capture, yeah.
He can. It's better for him than it is for the startups that compete with him. But I think that there's also the risk of bad regulation, and we've seen plenty of it. I mean, it goes back, Leo. You were involved when the Communications Decency Act was passed to protect children, and it was a horrendous law, which even the Supreme Court, agreed with those of us who were opposed to it. So there's been a lot of really bad legislation, but some sensible regulations might make sense. I mean, do make sense in my opinion, but often they get them wrong. And they take away rights sometimes in the name of protection, take away children's rights in the name of protection. So there has to be a sensible approach to this.
Yes, I agree with that entirely, Larry. But we were just talking about a story in which there was a technology company working on a new tech that interacts with humans in the world. And then when it came to reporting what they had done, there is controversy about this, but it appears that some people think they weren't being entirely truthful. So there we have a frontier technology that was for a long time the target of billions of dollars of venture capital money and has made lots of progress and is, I think, a poster child of where regulation does intersect with progress and can be this beautiful union. And the problem with this manifesto is that I agree with like 85% of it. It's just the 15% that I don't agree with is bat crap crazy. And I think it gives pro-progress, pro-tech people a bad name because they get lumped in with the Andreessen crowd who think that the existence of government is somehow like a bad idea when it comes to anything involving the marketplace. It's just...
Well, the other question is, whenever you're looking at something that's an analog to something that already exists, so for example, self-driving cars are an automated aspect of driving. We've regulated driving for decades. We've already established that it's okay to regulate the highways. So why wouldn't we regulate automated driving just like we regulate human driving? I don't even see the issue there, unless you think we should abolish all traffic laws.
No, but Larry, then take that one step forward. Apply that logic to AI. I'm curious where you end up, because AI is more de novo than driving on a highway. So when you think about AI regulation, where do you apply that?
It gets more complicated because AI involves speech, for example, something we generally don't regulate very much. And that's where it becomes very complicated, in certain areas.
Yeah, this stuff isn't
computers' personhood.
This stuff isn't easy. I mean, I think that's really, maybe we all want a simple, easy answer like you should regulate or you shouldn't regulate. It's not that easy. And clearly, if you're lying to DMV, and again, that's in dispute at this point, but if you lie to a DMV, they have every right to suspend your license. And
they would to a human.
Yeah. And they probably should.
Lied for your drive? Yeah.
That's not necessarily an indictment of all self-driving vehicles. As you point out, they let Waymo continue. But so I think you need some regulation. It's just, it's hard to know what's the right regulation. It's also hard to trust, as Mark Andreessen calls it, our gerontocracy in Congress, and to know whether they are able to do this appropriately.
Right.
Or not. It's an imperfect system in both ways. It isn't it?
There are a lot of congressional idiots that are young too. So let's not only blame
good point. Good point.
The cross-generational stupidity.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of names that fit that rubric actually rather easily.
Yeah.
But like when we're thinking about the comment in the manifesto about the gerontocracy in Congress, later on they also talk about how liberal democracy is the best way to form a government. And so the way that I think about that is, yes, democracy is the best thing we have. It's flawed, but that applies to regulation as well. And so I feel like there's a little bit of talking about both sides of the mouth here to appeal to one crowd while also appealing to the other. And so that just makes the whole thing a little bit mealy-mouthed to me.
Yeah. What is it? Who is it? Was it Churchill said democracy is the worst of all forms of government, except for every other.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's us, right? Humans are messy. Society is messy. Progress is messy. Change is messy. And it's always going to be a mess. And we just try to do the best to keep it from hurting as many people as possible. I mean, to me, I can't imagine a better project as humans than leveraging our ability to invent new things while caring for one another. Like, what's better than that?
These are, and I think this is why we have this discussion a lot. These are important discussions. And TWIT is by technologists for technologists. And so we like and celebrate technology, but we also want to do it as best we can with as little harm as possible. And I think it's important to have these discussions. And it's important to point out there isn't any clear-cut answer to this. We've got to do the best we can, though.
And Leo, let me ask you, as a fellow veteran of the tech journalism world, I don't recall having these conversations back in the 80s.
No, we were techno-optimists back then.
Yeah.
And actually I'm a little mad at myself because I bought into the whole thing. I mean, we thought the internet would be nothing but beneficial, that giving everybody a voice would democratize everything. And, in the long run, we might be right, but we did not anticipate the nightmare that social media has become.
I wrote my first book on online communications in 1983, and darn it, I failed to anticipate state-sponsored interference with technology.
There you go.
I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, disinformation.
Not to mention a million other things.
Yeah. Well, because we were very excited by what was happening. This is the new thing, and it was very exciting, and we had high hopes for it. Humans are, I think, at root, an optimistic species, and we had high hopes for it. And it hasn't quite worked out as we thought, but I still have high hopes.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Yeah.
We're still better off than we were, aren't we?
That's the thing with that manifesto. It fuses optimism and grievance in a way that's just a little bit gross.
It's weird.
It's good to be an optimist.
Yeah.
You can't be a venture capitalist who's a pessimist.
I don't think
Right.
I don't think billionaires should have a grievance of any kind whatsoever.
Oh, but they pay so much in taxes.
No, they don't.
They don't.
I always look at taxes. What's left over after you pay your taxes? And in their case, a lot.
Yeah, all of it. Can I just say
Almost
that
all of it.
if I ever have $1 billion, you will never see me again.
Yeah.
Like, you will never see me on Twitch. You will never see me on Twitter. I would just
shut up and
evaporate.
Yeah.
Well,
Why they get on Twitter is beyond me.
If you had 42 million.
Yeah.
I could buy Twitter 44 times for $1 billion.
I was just looking at the Google's corporate results, and their tax rate was stunningly low. I was thinking, can I get that there? Can I find that somewhere?
Did you hear about the Microsoft possible tax bill from the IRS? That was like dozens of billions of dollars.
$29 billion they owe the IRS. They dispute that.
The IRS
by way.
claims.
Yeah.
Yes.
But can you imagine that letter
As you should.
coming through the mail slot? Satya Nadella gets up in the morning, gets his cup of coffee, goes open the mail. $29 billion.
But Leo, how much would that be compared to what you and I would have to pay?
Oh, yeah. What's the percentage?
The percentage of assets.
And it was over like a long period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even their entire cash reserve. So it's like if I asked for a third of your checking account, you'd be like, all right.
Satya could get the checkbook out, write the check, say, just go away.
It's like when when Google gets these fines, I sometimes will calculate them based on the net assets of the average American, and a major FTC fine is kind of like a parking ticket.
Absolutely.
If you
Yeah. Let's take a little break. I think we've got some AI to talk about. We've got a great panel to talk about anything going on with technology. Larry Magid and I have been here for 100 years, and so we'll give you the old school point of view. Ryan Shrout, formerly of Intel, young man, knows all about hardware, and he grew up. You grew up with tech, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I started the first website when I was 17, so
Wow.
It's been a while.
This morning, Micah Sargent said, when I was in college, my first Wi-Fi router in college. And I said, wait a minute, you had Wi-Fi in college? What the hell?
Wait,
I was lucky to have two rocks to bang together. I don't.
Boy, my big I had a Smith Corona. I think I started out with a manual typewriter.
Manual
And I got an
typewriter.
electric one.
I was so excited when I got an electric typewriter.
Me too.
Still had to type everything, though.
Yeah.
And, of course, Alex Wilhelm from TechCrunch, who is right in the middle. He's a young man in an old man's body. An old man in a young man's body. There it is.
Yeah, I'm very glad that here on this panel today, I still count as old, because sometimes I come on Twitter now and there's people that are younger than me. And I'm like, that's not allowed. I was the young person.
I know.
Go away.
We're trying to get you you were in your 20s when you stared doing shows with us, yes?
Oh, I was like 23, 24. Yeah. It's been like a decade.
You were the kid. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And now they're these
younger
smart,
than you,
interesting young people. I mean, it just drives me bonkers. How dare they? Is my view.
Right.
Do you think that our point of view as oldies is because we didn't grow up with tech of this kind anyway? We didn't have the internet in school. Even we didn't have internet. Is different than people.
I didn't have a calculator until graduate school.
I know. Slide rules.
Did you have a slide rule?
Yes.
I still have mine.
I have a giant one in my office that was the teacher would use to demonstrate how to use a slide rule. So we have a different, I think we might have, do we have a different perspective, Larry, do you think?
Well, I have an historical perspective, and we were talking about optimism. I still have this wonder. I remember when you would pick up a rotary phone like the one off the right of my hand, and pay several dollars a minute to make a long distance call. Europe was
that's changed.
prohibitively expensive.
Yeah,
L.A. to New York was like
you'd be on the phone with somebody
$7, $8 a minute.
and you'd shout, "Hey, I'm on long distance here. Make this fast."
Exactly. And so when I look back to what I've been through, since the days of literally the manual typewriter, I think you can see that over my shoulder too. That literally was my typewriter in elementary school. My mom's typewriter when she was a legal secretary. And when I look back from where I started in technology, which was pretty much that phone and that typewriter, to where we are today, and you can see my Brownie camera behind me.
Yeah, I know. You got a lot of old stuff behind you. I'm now noticing.
Right. And I keep that here to remind me of like everything that's on my shelf has basically been replaced by this guy, and it's 1,000 times better.
You're talking about your smartphone.
So when I look at that, so when I look back, and hear people complaining, oh my God, I've only got an iPhone 14. Oh no, it's so slow.
Yeah.
I think back to, where you and I came from in tech and how far we've moved and how much further we're going to move. So,
I think though we do have an advantage that young people don't have. I remember talking to my friend who used to host the CNET. He used to host a couple of shows, but he hosted one for Westinghouse about the future of the internet, and then he worked for CNET for a while. And he's now teaching. You know who I'm talking about. I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, he was on TV. He was on broadcast TV.
Yeah, he was a broadcaster, and he's now Richard Hart. Richard Hart. He's now teaching kids in school about technology. I said, "Oh, it must be nice to work with young people who are internet natives who've grown up with it." He said, "Leo, they don't know anything about technology. We had to know in order to navigate it. Young people grew up with it. They never had to learn anything."
They know how to use it, but they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to build it. I mean, some do. I don't mean to generate the entire generation, but it's sort of like my father-in-law. He not only knew how to drive a car, he knew how to fix a car because he had to. When he was a kid, if the car broke, he had to fix it. And so,
that's true. Don't ask me to fix my car. There's nothing in it I could fix.
I wouldn't even know how to open the hood. In fact, there is no hood in my car.
All right. Us old folks. I'll tell you, I'm sorry. Yeah, he hosted The Next Step on Westinghouse.
Yeah, The Next Step.
Remember that? And it was all about
Westinghouse. That's the company.
Ever hear Westinghouse?
I think the brand still exists. The brand.
It was Group W.
Go visit their headquarters.
It was Group W television stations. Yeah, come to think of it, there's one area that's changed dramatically is the media landscape.
Oh, God.
Completely different.
Yep.
Let's take a little break. We'll come back with more with this great panel. But our show today brought to you by Palo Alto Networks. There's a name you ought to know. Palo Alto Networks offers ZT for OT without the trauma. Zero trust for operational technologies. Keeping operational technologies secure and running smoothly. Yeah, tall order. It's enough to make even the coolest operations director wake up with night sweats. Tossing and turning. Well, now you can have peace of mind with Zero Trust OT Security. This is a great solution. Zero Trust OT Security delivers comprehensive visibility and security for all OT assets, networks, and remote operations. The Palo Alto Network solution provides exceptional OT protection. More than 1,100 app IDs for OT protocols, 500-plus profiles for critical OT assets, and more than 650 OT-specific threat signatures supported. We're talking here best-in-class security while simplifying OT security management. It sees and protects everything in the network, and it automates threat detection while implementing zero trust across all operations. Sleep better with the most comprehensive platform to detect, manage, and secure OT assets. Learn how the Palo Alto Network's ZT for OT, Zero Trust for OT security solution, can achieve 351% ROI over 5 years. To learn more, find the link in the show description or visit paloaltonetworks.com. That's Palo Alto Networks.com. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. That's one area that's moving faster than the speed of sound is internet security and these acronyms. You probably have to learn a lot of this, Alex, especially back when you were with Crunch News and you were covering startups. I mean, that's a new acronym every minute.
Yeah, I just pretend to know what they are when I talk to CEOs. I'm like, sure, yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And guys, go back. What was that last one? No, I actually just pulled up Palo Alto Network's latest financial performance, and the company's doing This is my non-ad opinion, just to be clear, really well, which doesn't shock me because you're right. Cybersecurity is a massive growth part of technology right now. And apart from AI, probably the fastest growing out there. So it's one of those to watch. I have no idea what it is.
It's one of those things that doesn't get headlines as much as AI does, but is probably much more important, frankly, to AI, to our security and our existential threats to living. I'm not so worried about AI taking over the world, but I am worried about bad guys taking over the world.
I was at the Internet Governance Forum in Kyoto a couple weeks ago, and there was a session on the vast shortage of security professionals globally. I mean, there's just a huge demand.
I think the last stat I saw was 1.4 million open jobs in the United States alone.
Amazing.
Wow.
Open. They can't fill them. You know where a good area to go would be? Maybe bug bounties. HackerOne says they've paid ethical hackers over $300 million over the last 10 years in bug bounties. HackerOne is one of the good guys in this. It's the companies go to them and say, hey, we've got new software. We want to make sure it's safe. And we want to make sure that when bad guys find a flaw, they come to us, not to a nation state, not to a bad guy, another bad guy, but they come to us to fix it. So they create these bug bounty programs. HackerOne is 10 years old. 30 hackers have made more than $1 million. And one hacker has received $4 million for his bug reports. But that's people who are selling them to the good guys so that the software can be fixed, as opposed to, and it's got to be tempting when Pegasus comes along or a nation state fancy bear comes along and says, we will give you 8 billion rubles for this security flaw. It's nice that you can say, well, actually, I just got $1 million from Apple for it, so thank you very much. On average,
I think these programs are really interesting ways to capture kind of those in the middle, right? People who they don't have any allegiances to one side of this debate or the other, right? I know Intel had some very public bug bounties as well, looking for, remember back in the days of Spectre and Meltdown and all of that, it kind of fired off this whole new world of hardware security things to find. And they had a paid bounty program for that as well.
I think they use HackerOne as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Intel has, this is actually a perfect example of how a well-run company and what they're doing to find the bugs and fix them before the bad guys get the bugs. And Intel's really on the front line for all of this. So now they're doing Integrity, I guess, their bug bounty program. Eligible for money, swag. No, don't give me a T-shirt. I want the money.
I hacked Intel, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. I think, though, this is a good example of incentives being flipped to fit what the market wants versus what the market wants to avoid. I mean, if you want to make hacking less attractive to devious types, make it very profitable to do it in an ethical sense. Much like, how did we end essentially music piracy? It wasn't by shooting everybody. It was essentially by saying, hey, let's make a model where you can pay and consume and make it easier to pay and consume than it was to steal. Yeah. And so to me, this is brilliant. Also, one thing I just learned, HackerOne is a startup that's raised like $150 million in venture capital. I had no idea.
It's kind of cool. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Intel, since 2017, they announced this earlier this year, $4.1 million in bug bounties. Last year, almost $1 million.
I wonder how much that $4 million saved them. I bet that's one of the best investments they could have made.
Exactly. And if you don't give, so I'm Joe Hacker. I'm really good at finding flaws. And if Israel's offering me $1 million and Intel's offering me a T-shirt, I may really, really, really want Intel to fix this, but it's money talks. And so you've got to, Apple for years really did not want to do bug bounties. They had to.
Oh, did Apple had bugs? I thought they did. I thought they had a bug-free.
I think that might be why they didn't want to do bug bounties. They didn't want anybody to know they had bugs.
Exactly.
We know now that they do.
Yeah, we know.
They call it a security bounty, but they have them. And I think it's important that you do this. In fact, Apple for a long time, security researchers thought the iPhone was so locked down that it was problematic. There was no easy way to take somebody's phone and determine if it had been compromised because it was so locked down. So just recently, I remember Apple started a program where researchers could get iPhones and get access into the inner work. That was very strictly controlled, of course, the inner workings of an iPhone, so that they could do that kind of thing. Anyway, if you want a job and you're good at this stuff, you might want to look. Let's see. This is from HackerOne. The average bounty for all industries $3,700. But cryptocurrency and blockchain, there's big money in finding those flaws. What a surprise! Not so much in government.
I'm shocked that the government's behind on paying out.
Not so much.
Going back to Larry's comment, though, about this being very high ROI stuff. I mean, I'm curious if that 3.7K bounty shouldn't be 37K. You know, tech companies, especially right now, are mercilessly wealthy.
Yeah.
And so to me, like, I would just add a zero to that and just spin up the amount of inbound we were getting to make things more secure. It feels cheap from companies that are sitting on often $100 billion in cash.
Larry, I'm glad you're on today because this one really bugs me. And I want you to tell me if I'm wrong on this. Meta has just been sued by 42 states, by the attorneys general in 42 states, alleging that it's designed Facebook and Instagram to be addictive and target kids.
Yeah.
And it seems to me this is insane. But you correct me.
What's insane about it? Meta's position or the FTC's position?
The FTC has been in on this as well. That's right. New York,
whatever.
California, Colorado, Louisiana, Nebraska, South Carolina, Washington, and Wisconsin. You'll note both red and blue states.
Yeah.
Because with different motivations, but same result. I don't understand. Of course, all internet activities are designed to be sticky.
Right.
That's in the nature of them. That they're a business. You wouldn't expect McDonald's to make terrible food. They want you to come back. But you sue McDonald's because kids love Happy Meals?
The analogy that I use, people say that social media is like tobacco. I actually think it's more like chocolate. Chocolate is delicious, and Hershey's, I don't remember Hershey's ever going out of their way to put ingredients in chocolate that make it less appealing. Now, some people can't eat any chocolate and they'll get very sick. Some people eat far too much chocolate and that's bad for them. But most people, I think, moderate. At least a lot of people moderate, and it's fine.
And we don't ban chocolate.
We don't ban chocolate. We don't ban chocolate from kids. We don't tell parents that they have to sign a form for their children not to eat chocolate until they're 18, or they have to be regulated. So I'm glad you said it was insane, because I mean, the popular belief among most people I talk to outside of the tech world is that, we need to regulate, and we probably do need to do some regulation. But this notion of, it being addictive, it's appealing. Of course, if you're in the business of getting people to go online, you want them to enjoy your product as much as possible. Now, does that mean that there aren't some abuses, like some of these things that, what did that Snapchat had some feature which is literally designed to get you sucked in, and some of the feedback loops that are built into social media.
Well, they got in trouble, for instance, they had a feature which I used that said how fast you were going. And so you could do a selfie with your speed. And I used it in Japan on the bullet train, but apparently some silly people were speeding down the highway and going, see how fast I'm going? That's not a good idea. But is Snapchat to blame? They did, by the way, pull the feature down.
Well, I think Meta has cut back on or trying to discourage teens from using likes. I can't remember exactly. I should know this because
here's what the complaint says. Meta, and I should shut up, but I'm very curious what all of you think. Meta designed its Facebook and Instagram products to keep young users on it for longer and repeatedly coming back. According to the federal complaint, they did this via the design of their algorithms, copious alerts, notifications on your screen. Hey, your friends just posted something. So-called infinite scroll on the news feed, right? The company also includes features the attorneys general allege negatively impact teens' mental health through social comparison or promoting body dysmorphia. We know that happens with likes and photo filters. It's very common, especially for young girls, to develop eating disorders because they're trying to be like the person, the influencer on the Instagram. One federal suit accuses Meta of violating COPPA, you were just talking about the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, by collecting personal data on users under 13 without parental consent. Now, that is legit.
The violation.
They shouldn't be doing that. And there's already a law against that. That's fine. But can you blame Meta for making its algorithms sticky?
If they're doing that for Facebook, they're doing a pretty bad job of it, because I don't know anybody.
No kid wants to use Facebook, I'll tell you right now. They do use Insta, big time.
Look, Meta, I work with these guys a lot. As you know, Meta's one of the supporters of Connect Safely. I'm not sure I'm disclosing that or bragging about it or what, but I need to say that. But bottom line is that they do put a lot of thought into this. And there is a big trusted safety group that I work with that tries to educate parents. They've got parental control tools now that they can put in there. They've got all sorts of ways to alert kids. So there are things that they're doing to try to mitigate the problem. But yes, they're going to make their product as appealing as possible. And I don't know of a single consumer company out there that doesn't do that. I mean, cars, you name it.
McDonald's puts sugar in their hamburgers because it makes you want more.
Exactly.
I know. Yeah. I'm an addict.
I don't.
But I take responsibility for the number of Big Macs I eat.
The parts you read there, where it says, those features and capabilities or algorithms and things were targeting young users. Were they not also targeting you and me? Like, I assume that they are, right?
Of course.
So the delineation there seems unnecessary, right? If it's going to target kids, then it's targeting everybody. But I think I'm on the side of this of it is on parental supervision, is on parental education to really understand these things. I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. They have tablets. They're watching YouTube videos, so they're exposed to some of these types of things. But it's you're basically saying the business model should be changed and relegated on these things. It just doesn't make sense. And maybe the closest, I don't know, this might go down a rat hole on this one, but is the closest analogy to this cigarettes and how they had to self-regulate and they had to pull themselves out of advertising to
but
kids
cigarettes
and
actually kill you.
Yeah, they're dangerous.
Yeah,
they're scientifically proven.
Cigarettes are amazing. But you guys are all crazy.
By the way,
I bet there are people that would argue that this kind of body dysphoria and all that stuff is doing something like that.
But see, that's why I make the chocolate analogy. Could you imagine giving your kid a debit card and saying, hey, go buy as much chocolate as you want, eat as much chocolate you want? You're a parent. You're taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And your kids are probably going to come out, they're probably going to do pretty well.
What about, I think the Happy Meal is my favorite analogy. McDonald's clearly targets those as children. They put a toy in there. And I don't think McDonald's would agree that their food is bad for you, but I think anybody paying attention would say, don't live on Happy Meal, or don't live on Captain Crunch.
Cocoa Puffs. I mean, come on.
Those are aimed at kids.
Okay.
And by the way, I would also point out that Congress has done absolutely nothing to prevent mass shootings in schoolrooms, which I think is a lot more hazardous for kids than Facebook is. Is this it's an easy target is what it is.
Yeah, we should ban bowling alleys because something horrendous happened in a bowling alley last week.
It feels to me like Congress doesn't care about some real dangers to children, and they're worried about, they're spending a lot of time on Instagram. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So the chocolate thing, it's come up twice. I want to push on this because chocolate can be purchased. No, chocolate's fine, whatever. But I mean, in the analogy of chocolate, as some people regulate it, some people can't eat it, et cetera, that Larry is making. I'm curious, Larry, is taking the chocolate analogy, which is accessible to anybody at any age, as long as they have $1, do you think social media should similarly not have an age restriction on it?
Well, there is an age restriction right now with COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act.
And that is appropriate. You should not be advertising to kids.
Right.
And you definitely shouldn't be collecting data on children, personally.
But the problem with, let me quickly say, the problem with age restrictions is we don't yet have good age assurance. I think we're going to talk later about this UK bill.
We can talk about the UK, yes, that's right.
Yeah. And one of the problems is that in order for me to know that you're 12, you have to know that I'm over 18. And so it brings up a lot of privacy issues that are problematic in the United States. They're less problematic in other countries, but they're problematic in the United States. And I also believe the last time I looked at the First Amendment, it didn't say anything about an age test. It doesn't say you have to be 18 years old to enjoy the right for free speech. And social media is speech. And so we need to be really careful.
I might argue with you on that, because I think that the courts have held again and again that kids in school, for instance, don't have free speech in the same way that adults do. So while the First Amendment doesn't mention age, courts have subsequently ruled that minors do not have the same free speech rights as adults.
There is the Tinker decision, which gave kids the right to protest the war in Vietnam, despite
I remember.
their,
I took advantage of that.
It's nuanced. Look, even at work, Leo. I mean, you
right. We don't have free speech here either.
As a boss, you could tell your employees that there's certain things they can't say in the office.
But that's not what the First Amendment's about. The First Amendment is about government restriction of speech, not private.
But that's what we're talking about. If we're talking about regulation, that is government restriction of speech.
Right.
And I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm not saying that 5-year-olds should get to look at porn. I'm saying that it has to be done in ways that are sensible, constitutional, and also don't punish adults by creating a situation like the Communications Decency Act would have done, a situation where they're banning content to everyone in the name of protecting children. So it has to be done sensibly.
Yeah,
and you look like you have a lot to say.
I'm bursting with agreement with that. But the chocolate analogy is too polite to. I think the situation. I think you've picked something that everyone likes chocolate, and so it sounds great. But if we're all going to sit here and agree that we think there should be some regulations and restrictions on the age minimum to access social media, then I don't think the chocolate analogy holds up, and it's too generous to these companies, because you can eat chocolate when you're 2.
Should there be a warning? Should there be a warning on Cocoa Puffs that only should be eaten with parental consent if you're under 18?
I'm not arguing in favor of age restrictions or not. I'm just saying that Larry's analogy I felt was too generous to social
chocolate's
media
okay.
companies.
You're not feeding your baby chocolate, I'm sure.
I don't think we're allowed to yet. There's some things you can't eat before you're 1, like honey, for example.
No, you're a parent. You're allowed to. I mean, you'll kill your kid, but you're allowed to.
I'm pretty sure that I'm not allowed to kill my kid, actually. I think that goes against the First Amendment.
There's a rule against that, I believe.
Okay, there's a rule against that.
There's a rule.
My wife's going to... Thank God my wife does not watch Twit, because that would not have been a great 30 seconds for her to tune into. My point is, we seem to agree that this is not as bad as tobacco or alcohol, but it certainly is not the same thing as Greek yogurt that you can eat when you're a very small person.
That's good. So we do restrict alcohol consumption. Should we restrict Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram in the same way?
I personally do not think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, and unless you consider, again, COPPA to be that restriction, right, that we already have in place, and whether or not it's adhered to, right, is
it's about PII, right? It's about collecting PII.
Right, it's about collecting PII.
And I think everybody agrees that is a reprehensible practice, no matter what age you are, but certainly if you're under 13, you should not be allowed to.
Who's protecting us from PII?
Yeah, right.
No one, but that's been bought and sold. I mean, try to get that through Congress. I think everyone can agree. We can all rally around protect the kids, but when it comes to adults in America, it's very hard to get regulation around things that corporations want to keep. The suit I read in its entirety, and the only thing that hit me as a seemingly reasonable argument was the possible COPPA violations. The rest of it was just a lot of whinging by people who have a particular access.
It's stunning, though.
Facebook.
This is 42 out of 50 states.
I know. Yeah.
This is virtually everybody.
And this has been going on. The reason we started Connect Safely in 2004, I mentioned earlier the predator panic. This has been going on. I remember the attorneys general, 49 attorneys general complained about MySpace and all the horrible things that would happen. And again, they were worried about predators. So this has been going on since the dawn of, certainly since the dawn of social media, if not the dawn of the internet. And I think it's popular for Congress. I think it makes congressional people look really good because they're protecting the children.
Yeah.
And I think you get elected when you say you're protecting
AGs.
And AGs. Well, they're politicians. They're elected in most cases.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brian, are you going to let your 8-year-old get on Snapchat in 5 years?
The one she wants to get on TikTok, and I've denied that.
Okay,
right,
good.
Yeah,
I see.
Now
I
she'll
was at
take
the
my
airport
wife's
the
phone
other
and
day.
look at it every once in a while, but you track it, right, and you see all of that.
I was at the airport the other day next to a family with a 10-year-old. Dad was scrolling TikTok with his speaker on, by the way, very annoying. And for some reason, he kept looking at the same video over and over and over. That should
so
be
frustrating.
illegal. But then to keep the kid quiet, she was scrolling through TikTok, and both of them bottomless scrolling.
Yeah.
For the entire time we were waiting for the airplane. Now, I understand as a parent that is a difficult challenge, but it's
a stressful time.
It's a stressful time. But I see a lot of kids on tablets and phones. They're babysitting. Yeah, I think that's more common than not these days.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, my parents let me watch television when I was a kid, and there was some real crap. I mean, some of the commercials.
My parents had a half-hour limit.
Good for them.
Pissed me. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is an hour. There is no way half an hour is enough. I was so mad. But I survived.
Yeah. One thing I've learned is how addictive screens are, because I'm watching this through my first child. And if there is a phone out, she will crawl towards it. She loves to play with my Apple Watch.
Totally addictive.
She has turned on every single setting on my Apple Watch by just whacking it repeatedly because she thinks it's the best thing in the world. I have to not wear my watch around my child. And I think it's taught me what my brain is doing through the lens of a little person. It's a little scary.
Is the term addictive overly negative? Right? Like if you say screens are addictive, I'm trying to, maybe devil's advocate a little bit here, but like, don't you want young people to interact with technology in a way that is preparing them for the future and everything? Like, well, I don't.
Sugar's addictive. We feed everybody constantly. Feed them sugar. It's killing us. That's going well. It's killing us.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm worried that people who grow up with technology at that age won't have enough experiences in the sitting quietly reading a novel side of things, because that does take more work than scrolling TikTok to develop some of the things they're going to need down the road. And so to me, can I make a
but wait, Alex, analogy? How do we know what they're going to need down the road? Maybe what they're going to be able to need down the road is the ability to scroll fluently.
Probably not, Leo. But can I make a drug-based analogy?
Yes.
Sure, why not?
Okay, so there's a saying that, let me try this one out. We can cut it out later if it doesn't work. People say that cannabis, weed, is a drug for people who have found their way already, and then you're going to be okay. I feel like technology in a lot of cases is for children who have already had their brain gel a little bit. Like they've already kind of gone out into the woods a lot and read books and then
play outside, and then you can have your Snapchat.
So are you saying it's not like chocolate, it's more like marijuana? Is that your analogy?
Well, if you're offering both and I have to pick one, I'm going with cannabis over chocolate.
But the thing is, cannabis will make you want to have more chocolate.
Alex has been sober for years now, right? So,
but I'm Cali sober. So,
you're Cali sober? Is that what it's called? California sober.
Yeah, California sober.
I didn't know there was such
like
a
the
term.
California stop?
I don't want to inquire further.
I think my brother-in-law is going to see this. Hi, Breck. Anyways, okay, so the lesson here is drug-based analogies on Twitter don't go well. Don't make them. Okay, lesson learned.
And I think we have a show title. I'm not going to go to Urban Dictionary, however. Let's take a little break, and we will have more in just a bit. Ryan Stroud is here. Great to have you, Ryan. Should I say you're looking for work or no? I think you're enjoying life.
Yeah, I'm good. We're just running around. Like I don't know if you can retire at 41. You probably can't.
You should.
So
you should.
Yeah. Right? I did nothing for a couple of weeks and got pretty bored. So
feels pretty good.
Then I started.
All right. He's gonna be consulting soon near you, but follow. We will keep you up to date on what's going on in Shroutville, up there in Hebron. Just across the river. Hebron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just across the river from Cincinnati. Do you get Skyline chili down that far south?
All the time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's a staple.
Also with us, Larry Magid, connectsafely.org. You care a lot about kids. That's like what you do now.
I do. They're kind of the future of the world, you know. I mean, I started out when I was a parent. In fact, we can talk later about there was. I actually started out a tragedy that happened in your town of Petaluma with
I know Polyclass. It is actually the 30th anniversary.
It is
of Polyclass's abduction and murder.
And as you know, I got very involved in that case because I put her image online. First time with a missing child poster was ever put online, and that's what led me to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And then they asked me to write Child Safety on the Information Highway, and that's what led me to the career that I'm in. But yeah, of course, I care about children, both as a parent and as a human being that knows that they're our future and they need to be protected in many ways, including protected from being kept off of technology, as well as be protected from the dangers of technology.
That case rocked this town when it happened. We had just moved here. And I remember the signs going up, she's missing. Yeah. They didn't know initially where she was. And
I was in my car when I heard about it on KGO, and I wanted to turn around and drive to Petaluma. But instead, I kept going south, and I was headed over to Netcom, and it occurred to me that we could look for her online. And unfortunately, she was not to be found. She was already dead. But that really shook me to my core when I heard that story.
Yeah. What's sad is there was a black girl abducted and murdered roughly the same time.
Yep.
And it didn't get coverage at all.
Didn't get coverage. White missing girl syndrome. It's an issue, and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is really on that. They're really trying very hard to make sure that we don't forget any missing child, regardless of their age, their gender, their race, whatever. I mean, it's so important.
Yeah.
Every child's precious.
Georgia Moses also abducted roughly the same time. Found her body was found off the freeway just here in Petaluma, and there's a memorial there for her, but I don't think people really remember her in the way they remember Polyclass.
A book just came out about the Polyclass incident by a woman named Kim Cross, and I know she had an event in Petaluma a couple weeks ago. I was out of the country, but there's been a lot of attention looking back at that 30 years.
Yeah. Also with us, our good friend, and I mean it when I say Alex Wilhelm, since he was 23 years old.
You should go back and find that episode. But just adding to the cultural conversation we're having today, I just learned all about Cincinnati chili in the time since you talked to Ryan about it. Did you know you can order it 5 different ways?
Oh, yes.
This is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
I'm imagining that you sell a lot of anti-heartburn stuff down there in Cincy, because this sounds amazing.
It's very good. Although I will say there's a pretty strong you either hate it or you love it.
It's got cocoa in it and cinnamon. And
there's 2 dominant brands. One of them has cinnamon in it. One of them has chocolate in it, as kind of like the little
And it's on spaghetti. It always is on spaghetti.
Or hot dogs.
Yeah.
Will Uber Eats deliver it to California? That sounds great.
I'll Google and find out.
It is not
please.
great.
Send me some.
This is just working class bolognese sauce.
It is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's funny because we were talking about this a week ago, and I even asked ChatGPT for a Skyline recipe, and it was quite good. It was quite good. Yeah. So I don't know how Skyline Chili has now come up twice on our podcasts. And furthermore, I have no idea how you missed out, Alex Wilhelm.
Apparently, I'm not cultured in the Midwest. My parents are from Missouri, so I know all about sweet barbecue.
They know Skyline. They just have been holding out on you.
Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Florida only.
Huh.
Yeah. There's a picture, by the way. Oh, God. Get ready. You're on Tech News Today. Alex Wilhelm.
All right. So what you see there is the effect of drinking lots of vodka and not sleeping for a long period of time. You end up looking like that.
You know what?
Behind me is a whiteboard in the old TechCrunch office.
Yeah, that's your TechCrunch whiteboard.
Yeah.
Alex, I loved you so much even then. Then. And I'm just, I was really happy for you to watch your progress as you got sober, met the woman of your dreams, have had a family, and have moved into my childhood home. I've been watching the progress all along, and I feel like you're just mini me. and you complete me
with less hair.
The hair schmear.
You can order a Skyline chili on Amazon for $37 for 4 small packs, but Walgreens seems to have a better deal on Skyline chili.
Is it from Skyline? It's the actual Skyline chili?
I don't know.
Wow.
Fifth Skyline chili.
They have to sponsor the show now.
In cans or in packets. Wow.
Wow. Wow.
And they also
I'm ready to see those food items spike up the Amazon charts.
I'm ordering
tomorrow.
I think I'm going to get the Walmart version. It seems like
and the hot sauce is interesting. There's always this interesting trick. You get oyster crackers. You can see the pack.
Yes, they sell oyster crackers as well.
Yeah, if you put a drop of hot sauce on one of the oyster crackers and eat it, it tastes like a grape.
What?
I'm not making this up. I'm just telling you.
I gotta go. Can we do a group field trip? Can we do a show in Cincy? Can we just go there and do one in like a Skyline Chili's booth? That would be a blast.
This is the value I bring to the show.
Oh my God. I never knew this. All right, let's take a break. You go have some Skyline hot sauce and oyster crackers and report back if you would. Our show today brought to you by Wix. Web agencies, this is for you. You're going to like this one. Let me tell you about Wix Studio, the platform that gives agencies total creative freedom to deliver complex client sites while still smashing deadlines. How? Well, first, let's talk about the advanced design capabilities. With Wix Studio, you can build unique layouts with a revolutionary grid experience and watch as elements scale proportionally by default. No-code animations add a little spark of delight, while custom CSS gives you total design control. But it doesn't stop there. Bring ambitious client projects to life in any industry with a fully integrated suite of business solutions, from e-com to events to bookings and more. And extend the capabilities even further with hundreds of APIs and integrations. You know what else? The workflows just make sense. There's the built-in AI tools, the centralized workspace, the on-canvas collaboration, the reuse of assets across sites, the seamless client handover. And that's not all. Find out more at wix.com/studio. W-I-X, wix.com/studio. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And you're right. If Skyline doesn't sign up today for a full site takeover, I'll be very disappointed.
There's a Skyline chili ad on my football game television presently. So
the local ads.
How are the Bengals doing?
We were up 17-10.
Zip.
Doing great.
Zip.
Sorry.
Because you know who the Bengals are playing, Alex Wilhelm?
They're playing the
my
Santa
team.
Clara 49ers.
The Santa Clara
Los Altos.
49ers.
Oh, you stole my joke. Dang it.
You were too slow.
That's it. I'm no longer friends with Brian.
You were too slow.
I'm really tired. The baby woke up at 5 today.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
So let's talk about this online safety bill. It is now the law in the United Kingdom. People were complaining. A lot of companies, WhatsApp, Signal, both said we're leaving the UK if this passes. They decided to stay after the regulators said, well, don't worry about encryption. We're not going to, you don't have to worry about that. But they didn't actually write that into the law. So that remains still a question mark. They're billing it as they want to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online, which is a terrible slogan. I'd strongly recommend you do not make bumper stickers. It became law. The royal assent. King Chaz said, it's okay with me. And so October 26th, it became law. They've been pushing this forever. Yeah. It addresses underage access to online pornography. Did they get the age requirements in? Because that was very controversial. For a while, there was the thought that you'd have to go down to a pub and say, here's my driver's license, Governor. I want to see some porno. Is that fixed?
Well, there is a technology. There's a company in the UK called Yoti. It's been around for a while. And they use, I guess you'd call it biometrics to determine an age. Now, that brings up other privacy issues as well. They, of course, swear that they don't keep the data. They don't identify who you are. They only estimate your age. But that is something that the UK government is pushing, the use of the age assurance technology. But you bring up a really good point, Leo, because one of the biggest concerns about all of these bills that require age limits is what impact does it have on adults who want to privately, anonymously access legal content that may be inappropriate for children. And it goes back to...
I can't speak for the UK, but I know that many states in the United States where these laws are now in effect, they don't care. They want pornography to end, period. They want it to be illegal. So it's just a wedge, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and in the U.S., I mean, there's a bit of a red-blue divide in the sense that the two states that have passed somewhat similar legislation are Arkansas and Utah, which are Republican states. That doesn't mean the Democrats want to feed pornography to children by any stretch of the imagination, but Republicans are slightly more. But in the UK, it's really such, there's been a lot of pressure there. First of all, you've got the tabloids that really push any issues that any bad things that come up become major tabloid stories. But this, one of the things it does that I like is really puts pressure on companies to remove CSAM, child sexual abuse material, otherwise known as child pornography. That isn't the name we use anymore, but it's how people understand it. Really promoting that, making them responsible for doing that. Enforcing age limits and age verification measures, not necessarily the going to the pub for the ID, but some way of doing that. Providing parents and children, I'm reading now from the UK.
By the way, that's part of the problem is this hand waving, providing some way to do that. In other words, avoiding the problem of how do you do age ID effectively without invading people's privacy.
It's really hard. I was on a commission 20 years ago looking into it. At the time, we couldn't come up with anything. But there are some technologies and just also making reporting easier and clearer. And one of the things that I really feel very strongly about is when you report, whether you're a child or an adult, when you report, there needs to be some follow-up. You can't just report into the void. You have to get, they have to actually do something with that report. And that's one of the things that the UK is going to be insisting on. Otherwise, some very hefty fines. And believe me, the social media companies will continue to do business in the UK. And it wouldn't surprise me if certain aspects of this law wind up jumping over the pond and coming to a country near us.
So it sounds like you're on the balance in favor of these requirements.
I understand why it's being pushed.
We should say nobody in their right mind is in favor of CSAM.
Right.
And if you oppose these laws, sometimes you're painted as somebody who's advocating child pornography, and that's not the case.
Exactly. No. You can be opposed to these laws for a lot of reasons and still love children and want to protect children. I don't think that. I think it's unfair to paint anybody who's opposed to these laws as being soft on protecting children, and they are problematic. And look, it's hard. I mean, there's no question about the fact that even think of bars. You go into a bar today. Why should you have to show your ID? Maybe you want to have a drink and not identify yourself. So there are
that's a good point.
Even in traditional methods that we've had in place for decades.
No, I still have to show an ID often, even though I'm obviously over 21.
Yeah, some places require
it. Actually, the California DMV and some other states now has an app that I can do age verification without revealing anything else on my driver's license, like, say, my home address. And I think that's a good thing, right? There's actually on the DMV.
It just shows you're over 21, or what?
It says, here it says share my age. So this is the California. California, unlike some other states, is not allowing Apple to do it in the wallet. They have their own, not such a great app. Okay, and I can verify using TrueAge. I guess I can show a QR code. So if the bouncer has the right thing, I could show the QR code. But if he doesn't, I've got this little ID that actually shows my birth date. Without my driver's license or anything else. That's
great.
Good, right?
Yeah, because a lot of this has to do with privacy. I mean, the privacy folks are the ones that make the strongest objections to these kinds of laws, including, as you pointed out, the whole encryption issue. And I'm glad they're pushing back. I'm glad there's been pushback, and they seem to be backing away.
Well, that's part of the problem with CSAM identification is if you're using an encrypted platform like Apple's Messages or Signal or WhatsApp, you can send CSAM material without being detected because it's encrypted. And that's what's unclear about this is initially this bill said, no, well, these companies have to upon request, provide clear text of versions of what's going on, which breaks encryption.
And by the way, encryption protects children as well as adults. I'm actually on a Internet Society task force where we're looking into the whole issue of encryption. And part of the issue is children have a right to be protected, not only in terms of protecting their privacy, but also their security. What if there's a database that contains information about a child, let's say medical records? That must be encrypted to protect the child. So it's a two-way street, even on the aspect of safety.
How are we still doing this? I feel like I'm here with my slightly elders in the technology world. And even I've gone through so many cycles of encryption's bad. We need to get around it. Technologists need to make better technology to make it work. And every time they go, we can't do that. It's math. And then it comes up again 9 months later.
Because they're never going to give up.
Yeah.
That's the answer. That law enforcement boring. In every country of the world, and perhaps I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're doing this with the best intentions of stopping terrorism and child exploitation and trafficking and a variety of ills. They believe that they should have the right to see every form of electronic communication, and that will enable them to do this. Now, this is, Alex, this goes back to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights in the United States, where the founders said, okay, yes, with perfect information, you can have perfect law enforcement, but we believe that the cost of perfect information is too high, that people should have a right to be secure from, for instance, illegal search and seizure. And I think that we answered that question. We answered that question in the 18th century. Mm-hmm. But it still comes up, and it's not that they don't understand the math. I'm going to ascribe good motivations that they really truly want to end crime. But so did Tom Cruise in Minority Report. It's not you can't have perfect information. Sorry.
I would even go one step further and say, even if you had perfect information, you couldn't have no crime, because any government that had that much information would become inherently corrupt.
Yes,
but that's
they would become the criminals.
Political acts.
Yes. They would be the criminals.
Yeah. I mean,
I was on the board of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for 20 years, and this debate would come up constantly. And I was in a minority among my colleagues on the board, and they all meant well. They were all great people. You all know about John Walsh. He was one of my fellow board members. I mean, upstanding folks. But you're right. I mean, the law enforcement temptation is to want to get as much information as possible, and there needs to be pushback. That doesn't mean that they don't have a right to push in their direction, but we need an ACLU, we need an EFF, we need people saying, wait a minute, what about protecting our civil liberties? And that's really important. And again, I run an internet safety organization, but I still feel very strongly that we can protect children for the most part and still have our liberties. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but we never have. And
I guess what you're asking, Alex, is why don't they understand this, that math is math, and you can't have break encryption without breaking it for all of us? I don't know why they don't understand that.
Because that gets tedious. I understand the desire to protect children. Everyone's in favor of it. Yeah. I also get the desire for privacy. Most people are in favor of that. But encryption is not, you can't have 80% of it, if that makes sense.
Right.
By my understanding, and this is what I hear from every single person in the cybersecurity and just security world. And here we are again, with WhatsApp threatening to pull out of the UK because they're being told that they can't encrypt. Now, clearly, there's some work to make this function, but it's 2023, we're still doing this. Maybe this is just heat death of the universe, taxes, and encryption debates.
I mean, honestly, I really wonder why WhatsApp and Signal dropped their objection to this, because the bill doesn't actually protect encryption. It doesn't. They did not remove that clause that says you'd have to provide clear text. They kind of said, "Well, we don't worry, we're not gonna make you do that." And I think Signal and WhatsApp and the others just didn't want to. They couldn't face it, and they said, "Okay, fine."
Remember, WhatsApp's owned by Meta. I mean, would have been disastrous for them to have continued.
They don't want to leave the market. This is the timeline. Get ready for this, because Ofcom, the British regulator, now has to come up with rules. And get this timeline.
Yeah,
it stretches into 2026, I might add.
I love a good Gantt chart.
Yeah. So the act passes. That's up at the top here. Then in a few months, they're going to do a consultation on guidance. And then it won't be until the end of next year that they'll finalize the codes. And then Parliament has to approve it, blah, blah. But I think what they've done here very cleverly is they got it passed. And then they convinced people, it's going to take a long time before we implement this. But it will happen, I think. And I think that's problematic. I really do.
Full employment for solicitors, though.
Oh, God.
There's a lot of legal battles going on.
And notice there are in each of these phases, parliamentary approval is required. So there is an opportunity to fight it in Parliament. I think the same thing's going to happen in the U.S. I mean, the fact that these AGs, 42 AGs, are suing Meta because it's addictive to kids just shows us that there's a political will to come down on big tech, regardless of the sense.
But there's not a political will to be non-hypocrites about this. If you want to dig into a little bit more in the UK scene here, just Google Tories WhatsApp message deletion.
Right. Oh, believe me, these members of Congress want to use encryption. These parliamentarians, they're not talking about for them. It's for you.
Right. And
it's good for you,
that's why
not us.
Going back to the good intent portion of this, I think it's very generous of us and fullness of spirit to ascribe good intent to all law enforcement demands for more information and so forth. But I don't trust them.
I think law enforcement.
I'll take the more negative side of that.
I will give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt, say they have good intent because they're trying to do their job, which is protect us. But I don't trust politicians. Politicians clearly always have malintent. Their only intent is to get elected. So they'll say whatever they have to say.
Did you hear about the recent case when the police pulled over the wrong person, and then as they were arresting him, realized he wasn't the right person, and then made up crimes to nail him?
Yeah, you're right. I know. Yeah.
And we only found out because of body cameras. Yeah. My point is, these people, these are the people who are going to want to snoop through your messages. These people.
Yep.
No, but you make a good point about, politicians, they want their privacy. Businesses want their privacy and security. So and I think that's actually where the real power of the pro-encryption movement is with businesses that basically require it. They have to have it.
Yeah. You can't have online banking without encryption.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, like if we lost encryption, the internet stops working and we can't do anything. And that's the scale of what we're talking about here. So it has to be in bad faith that they keep trying this, because they must have read at least one thing once about how this debate's gone.
They don't believe it. I just think
unless they're just massively stupid.
well.
I'm sorry. I'm going to put on my happy face again. There you go. I love it. It's great stuff. Good work, everybody.
By the way, I should mention, Larry, you noted this. Apple now has advice from Connect Safely in iOS 17. Yeah. I think that's really great. So Apple backed down on their CSAM detection. And took it out. They decided not to do that. That was where it was going to scan your phone for fingerprints of known CSAM material, and then it would notify Center for National NCMEC that they found something. And there was this whole process where eventually law enforcement would get involved after NCMEC looked at it and said, yeah, that's child porn, etc.
Well, so what they're doing now, and it's certainly less controversial, although some people could argue it's somewhat, is on your device, not on the cloud. They're not doing anything in the cloud. But if a child gets let's say a naked picture, or tries to send a naked picture, on-device technology will blur it and basically say, are you sure? It won't say you can't do it. It'll say you're sure. By the way, an adult can sign up for this as well. You can choose to have it scan your device, but it happens only on the device. And if a child does get it, then they get access to our content. They actually get we wrote content for adults, for parents, for teens, and for preteens. So depending on who you are, you get access to our content. Adults can also go in at any time. If you have iOS 17, you can go into screen time and click around into the, I think it's called sensitive content. I can't remember the exact screen there. And that will take you to content written by Connect Safely. So we were very pleased to have that opportunity, to ultimately present our material to about 1.5 billion people around the world once this rolls out, once, iOS 17 rolls out globally, and it's in most markets are going to be using this. I don't know if you found it yet. I
actually did.
Great.
And it's in communication safety under screen time. Safety. And it looks great. You could turn it on. It can detect nude photos and video. You know, one of our Quippy in our Discord said that his wife was running a speed test, and there were pornographic ads in it. Would it protect you against that? Because I think that would be a good thing to protect you against.
Well, I don't know if it would or not. I think it's mostly on messaging, different Apple messaging apps, and
because I would
by the
go
way,
for
it's
that.
really challenging to write. It's hard enough to write at all. It's hard enough to write for a phone, but we actually had to make this that it would work on a watch as well. So it was a really challenging editorial project for us.
So you can turn on communication safety. And then that will go to other devices using iCloud for screen time. So your desktop as well, if you want.
Right, absolutely. It's all. I think all the Apple platforms.
And then this says view child safety resources. That was the stuff that was written by
That's our material.
Great.
Mostly, yeah.
And then improve communication safety. Help Apple improve communication safety by sharing analytics and usage data. I think as a parent, I love the idea that the phone will. It's just say, hey, this picture of you that you're sending to somebody, do you really want to do that? That's really important. And I know a number of teenagers who've gotten basically tricked into doing this. And a little nudge, like maybe you want to think about that, is a great thing.
Revenge porn, not revenge. Sextortion is actually a byproduct.
That's what happened. A friend of mine.
A byproduct of this happening. So it's really a way to, and again, it's not censoring. It's not even telling even minors. It's not saying you can't do it. It's saying put some thought into it. And by the way, here are some consequences. Here are some resources. And we go into a lot of stuff. We have stuff on cyberbullying. We have stuff on time management. It's not just protecting you from inappropriate images. Thanks.
I think that's really really good thing to do. Ryan, you're quiet. You've been sitting in corporate meetings for too long, and you're not.
You're too well behaved.
You're too well behaved for this show.
You know, topics shift. Maybe that is a corporate practice.
I have nothing to add here, boss.
The interesting, what I was thinking about as you were going through that, right, is it's a great use case of on-device AI, right? And the ability to utilize some of these more advanced detection algorithms locally on your smartphone or on your PC or Mac or whatever it is, to be able to do all that stuff in real time. It's happening locally so that it's safe and secure and private that this is happening, right? And those kind of match up well with the tenets of what on-device AI versus cloud AI would bring to consumers. So,
and it also comes from the point of view of do the least harm, because we know that it's easy to mistakenly think there's nudity in a picture, for instance. And instead of sending it off to NCMEC and saying there's a naked picture of a child here, it's just nudging. And so I think that's good because, I mean, this AI isn't perfect, right? And things happen, mistakes happen. I'm sure there's some false negatives, but I'm sure there are also probably false positives. So, it's good to accommodate that in some way that is least damaging. So, kudos.
And not only is it good for, what you pointed out, you don't want to turn someone in for not committing a crime. It's also good from an education standpoint. Look, you can't arrest your way out of all social ills. You've got to educate them.
There you go.
Protect themselves.
That's really profound. Yes.
And I think that's fundamentally the most important thing.
Yes.
And it does that, I think.
I like that. That's a very good way of putting it. All right, we're going to talk about something Ryan has something to say about, and that is Qualcomm. They had their big Snapdragon event. We had rushed through all the shows just so we could get to this special event in Maui. Let me ask you, Ryan, did they fly you out for this and put you up and all that?
Yeah, they did. So this was, I talked to him maybe the week ahead of time, and I said, I left Intel and was trying to figure out what's going next. They said, well, we could use some advice and input on how to go launch this. Yeah. So
the reason I asked,
it was good. Yeah.
Is I think almost everybody there was in effect paid to attend. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. But at the end of the PC World article, they have a little disclaimer that says, to gain access to Qualcomm's new Orion and Snapdragon Elite platform, Qualcomm offered to pay for PC World for room, board, and airfare at its Snapdragon Technology Summit. PC World accepted, but maintained editorial control of its content.
That's probably a shift in policy.
I'm not a fan, honestly, of I've never gone on any paid junket for, any of these companies. I think Intel's probably offered. Certainly have been invited to Taipei for Computex and I don't know.
For sure.
And I never say yes, but it's interesting to see the number of influencers at Apple's events posing with Tim Cook. My buddy Tim.
That's just branding, right? On the journalistic side, I'm also opposed to junkets because #ethics, but I do have a small modicum of allowance that I'll give because media is so broke.
Yeah.
And the newsy event was held in Maui, which you'll note is not that close to anybody.
If they held it in Santa Clarita and offered people airfare there, I wouldn't have as much problem.
Where is Santa Clarita? Is that a real place?
Yes, somewhere you don't really want to go, frankly.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Why not? Why not Palo Alto? We all know where that is.
Well, I'm just saying, if it were less attractive of a destination, actually, Qualcomm's in San Diego. That's a little too attractive. Let's stick with Santa Clarita. And by the way, if you live in Santa Clarita,
Nothing wrong with it.
nothing wrong with it.
Charger there.
I'm just saying, if somebody gave a journalist a flight to Santa Clarita and put him up at the Motel 6, I wouldn't have as much problem.
All right. So Santa Clarita,
No
for people,
airport there.
Go ahead.
there's only 228,000 people there as of 2020, and it is 30 miles northwest of LA.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now you know where it is on the map.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Hey, there is a Six Flags there. I'm just saying.
Alex is very good at quickly Googling
His
to stay relevant
his
in what's
Google foo
happening
is
in the
excellent,
conversation.
yes.
I love that. That's
Well,
great.
no, it's the fact that I'm this is a flaw of mine. I'm very curious about everything, and so I'm like, that can't be a real place. Oh, there's 250,000 people there. Okay,
Yeah, I
I'll try
thought he
that
made
one
it
out.
up too. To be
Do you
fair,
think the
Yeah.
public knows the difference, though, between, do you think any more the public cares anymore that PC World got their ticket punched for this, or that Justine and her sister were there? And, I guess nobody cares anymore. It's just
I couldn't
me.
imagine. As I was saying, I don't think when Harry McCracken was editor, multi years ago, they would have allowed for that. I also want to point out that the United States journalists are just about the only ones in the world that don't generally,
Yes.
as a rule,
Right.
take junkets. I've been to many a conference where all of my European colleagues had their way paid, and
Right.
the Americans all paid their own way. So, but I think, as someone just pointed out, this may be the way it is now because I think, Alex, you made the point. Companies are broke, and if they can't afford to send their journalists to cover things, I can understand why they would allow them to take these junkets, but it's an issue.
I just hope consumers of tech news pay attention. And I mean, nothing wrong with Justine. I love her. Good friend. But you just have to consider the reviews from sources that are paid to go to Maui with that in mind. And, unfortunately, a lot of YouTubers, YouTube influencers, basically.
What I think is super interesting about the conversation, I don't think the medium matters anymore, whether it's
I agree.
written or
That's my
video
point.
or YouTube
nobody
or TikTok
cares.
or what have you, right? And this is the value and the importance of multiple points of view and not just depending on one person or one outlet to get your insights from, right? Because any given person on any given day can be influenced for any given reason on their opinion. Right. When I was independent media, like 2004, I wasn't going anywhere if I was going to pay for it. Right. And I do think that there is value to fostering some of these smaller independent outlets and people to do some of these, to be able to cover these products in a way that's interesting and compelling. And sometimes that means, taking a flight on somebody else's dime to go do it, right?
I'll give you a current example. So tomorrow, Apple's having a big event. Actually, it's not an event at all.
It's small.
They're releasing a video.
Yeah, keynotes now are just YouTubes. How mighty the fallen.
And some people got invitations to watch the video. I am so persona non grata at Apple that they didn't even ask me to watch their video. Then there's others who not only got invitations to see the video, but got sent AirPod Maxes and gift boxes. Here's Lamar Wilson, good friend who is a YouTube influencer, 2.5 million followers on YouTube. Looks like they sent him chips, and I don't know what number 7 is, but it's something to drink. And he sent and $550 headphones to watch the video. Here's Lamar.
You got to have the headphones to watch the video.
Oh, yeah, you can. Here's the gift box that Apple sent influencers to announce this event. I didn't even get an email, but I'm not butthurt. I'm proud of it because honestly, folks, consider when you read reviews of stuff from people who are sent expensive gifts to watch a video, maybe you should consider that. And I love Lamar. He's used to do a show on our network. And I don't blame him. I don't blame Justine. I don't blame a single person, even PC World, for going to Maui on Qualcomm's ticket. But I just think you have to consider, are they not influenced by that? Maybe they're not. If I were Lamar and I took all that, I would have a very hard time saying, this M3 is crap.
In my view, this is the benefit of the old guard, right? The people have been around.
And by the way, we're getting older.
I know. Yeah. The old guard keeps getting older.
And some of us are dying off.
Is like, you're not impressed by a ticket to an exotic location, or maybe you're like, actually, I'd really rather have not gone. I'd rather have stayed home with my family. But, in order to get the information and be responsible for, covering all the products that I need to cover, I need to go do some of these things. Maui's an exception to that, right? Because it is Maui and it's not going to Santa Clara or Kansas City or Cincinnati, right? So it definitely stands out for sure.
Yeah. And it's really sending an influencer a box with goodies in it.
But that happens. I mean,
did you do that in Intel? Did Intel do that?
Intel does this. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. When we would send out 300 CPUs for review, they weren't quite as exotic as what Apple had demonstrated there, right? But there'd be, some trinkets, some T-shirts, a stuffed pillow, one of the chips and a piece of lucite that you can use on your shelf behind you when you record your videos, all that stuff. I mean, when we were launching Arc, they made Arc branded neon lights, right? that you could use.
Where's mine? You never sent me any of those.
You wouldn't take it. I'm sure you wouldn't take it, even if I offered it to you, right? You've clearly said.
Obviously, I've established a reputation because nobody offers me bribes of any kind anymore.
I actually find it annoying when they send me these tchotchkes. I've got to do something with it.
Yes, you have to do something with it.
The product you need to review, and it's up to the policy.
And from time to time, we have review units. I think Jason Howell got a review unit of the Pixel 8. And we always say, we will accept a review unit. We'll hold it for a number of weeks. Please include the return shipping envelope and the return shipping because we aren't going to keep it. And I think that's there's like, I don't take nothing from anybody and nobody offers it to me. They don't even send me invitations to watch a TV show. Then there's people who do review units. I used to do that for a lot when you can't afford to get every phone that comes out. That's not unreasonable. Then there's people who get gift boxes with $550 headphones in it and snacks. And look, I don't blame Apple or Intel or any other company for doing that. They should do that. I blame people who claim to be journalists for taking it.
Yeah. I also think it just goes to show how much power now has been distributed away from traditional media. If you want to think of that in a very broad sense, towards individuals with large followings, and influencer marketing is such a big industry for that reason. The only thing I would kick back on is Ryan said the media doesn't matter at all. I would say we matter very little, but we're trying very hard.
We work hard.
I wouldn't say media didn't matter at all. I hope I didn't say that.
You said something like the media doesn't matter.
The old timers don't.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, here we are doing this show, right? Kicking and screaming, trying to be ethical and trying to have our impact. But I guarantee you that one of those big YouTubers is going to get more views than we are.
Yeah.
Maybe by a large number, because let's be honest, they had slicker, shorter production, and we're here on hour 2 of Twit still chewing on the important stuff.
Right.
But I mean,
that
doesn't mean
I am jealous. I mean, I'm not jealous of the gifts. I'm jealous of the access that's provided to now YouTubers as opposed to more traditional. And access is a very important part of doing the job.
And access has always been something that companies and governments and politicians would dole out.
Sure.
I mean, that's nothing new. And there's nothing unethical, as far as I know, about having a politician or a company want to talk to you from the standpoint of the journalist. But there are certain people who get one-on-ones with Tim Cook, and there are certain people who don't.
Right.
And there are very few people who wouldn't want it.
Right.
So it's that's much more valuable to me than a $550 headset.
Absolutely. I bought my AirPods.
In fact, if you get paid by the hit, and you get a one-on-one with some senior guy, you could make a fortune on your blog post that you wouldn't make if they didn't give you that access. So it's worth a lot more than $550.
We're going to take a little break. Let Ryan Shrout do a little celebratory dance, you son of a gun. And we'll be back with more. Just a little bit. We won't go into it. Our show today brought to you by, you've seen the signage around our studio. Our great friends at IT Pro TV are now ACI Learning. ACI Learning, our studio sponsor this year. We thank them greatly. And we tell a lot of people, we have been telling people since IT Pro started, that is the place to get IT training as an individual, or if you've got an IT team, say you're an MSP and you've got a team of technicians in the field, or you're a company that has an IT team that's protecting you. It's so important they keep their skills up, and that's why ACI Learning should be important to you. 94% of CIOs and CISOs agree attracting and retaining talent is job one. We were just talking about how many openings there are in cybersecurity in the U.S. If you've got a cybersecurity team, keep them happy, keep them trained, keep them current. 87% of companies say they know they have skill gaps with their team. The challenge of assessing your IT staff and their skills is overwhelming. It doesn't have to be. ACI Learning has a great tool that's going to help you know what training you need and what training you don't need. It's called Insights, a revolutionary skills gap analysis tool to assure you the training you're providing is working. It's a quick 1-hour assessment. Insights from ACI Learning will allow you to not just see, but understand and fix the skills gap in your IT team. This is a solution every IT manager needs. With Insights, you can identify specific skill gaps in your employees, see where the weaknesses lie. That's a big deal, because if there's weaknesses there, the bad guys are going to start probing them. And you can empower your team with something they really want, personalized training. How many of us have taken training in stuff we already know? What a waste of time. Avoid redundancy. Blanket training wastes time and money. Give your team the training they need. They'll be grateful. They're learning something new, especially with ACI Learning, because as you know from IT Pro over the years, they know how to make learning engaging and fun. Their trainers are experts in the field who are passionate about what they're talking about, and that passion communicates. Insights will give you detailed solutions, support, and strategy. They'll issue recommendations. They'll even help you set up a training plan for individuals or the whole team. In fact, you can even use it to compare results against other organizations so you'll know how you stand. Test skills, close the gap with practical labs that allow trainees to focus on the skills they need most. ACI Learning helps you retain your team and entrust them to thrive while investing in the security of your business. Now up to 7,200 hours of on-demand content. Easy to consume. There's new episodes daily. ACI Learning also stops the competition with their completion rate, 50% better than the other guys. That's because this is training people need and want. Training solutions your business has been waiting for. Future-proof your team and your company using this Insights tool from ACI Learning. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. Twit listeners, you can get up to 65% off depending on the size of your team on an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Just complete the form. They'll give you an exact quote. Go.acilearning.com/twit. Love these guys. They do a great job. And that was a paid endorsement. I've been compensated. But if they want to fly me to Maui, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that. No, we love our sponsors. We're very grateful to them. In fact, this is an opportunity for me to ask you to help us out. You could be a sponsor, too, by joining Club Twit. Now, it's a lot less expensive than you might imagine. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows. It gets you access to the Club Twit Discord, where there's so much great discussion about everything, not just stuff we're talking about in the shows, but any topic nerds and geeks are interested in. It's really my social network. I love hanging out in the Discord. You also get special shows we don't put out in the regular feeds. Things like, that's how This Week in Space started. We now do that publicly. Nerds. We also do Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson. That was a show we had to cancel for lack of interest, but the club wanted it, so we brought it back. The club pays for it. We also do Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent, Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott, the Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett, GizFizz with Dick D. Bartolo, and we're now doing an AI show. We're workshopping it in the clubs. These are all things you get access to, plus special events. We had that escape room. Or escape box, I should say, on Thursday. That was so much fun. Stacy's Book Club is coming up. A fireside chat with Renee Ritchie. He's creator liaison at YouTube and a longtime host on MacBreak Weekly. Our holiday show is December 7th. Club members will get to watch early. We also have a fireside chat with our AI guy, Anthony Nielsen. And those are just some of the events we've got planned coming up. $7 a month, twit.tv/clubtwit. You too can be a sponsor. And honestly, these days, it's more and more important. I always thought this would be a listener-supported network, and I'd love to get to that point. With your help, maybe we can. We have a great panel. Alex Wilhelm is here. No, not yet. Got one more break, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, they were just asking me to do something. I was going to put on my squirrel costume for you, Alex, but I guess I won't. Alex Wilhelm from TechCrunch. Larry Magid, connectsafely.org. And formerly of Intel, now on his own, Ryan Shrout. Ryan, I'm so glad to see you again.
It's good to see everybody. Yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah.
So tell us, you have a unique perspective because Intel has been really, I think, struggling to get their process down smaller and smaller. They've been kind of stuck at 10 nanometers, 11 nanometers. It must have been, despite all of their protestations to the contrary, a bit of a shock when Apple Silicon comes along and gives all this performance at a much lower power, really great for mobile, something that Intel has struggled with. Intel, still powers most PCs by far, like 90% of all PCs in the world. Microsoft clearly would like to have an ARM platform to compete with Apple Silicon. Both NVIDIA and AMD have said we're going to do that. Intel says we're looking at that. But it was Qualcomm that bought a company called Nuvia, run by former Apple chip designers. In fact, people were so in tune with what Apple was up to that Apple sued them at first. They've dropped the lawsuit, but Apple initially sued them. Qualcomm acquired Nuvia. And this was the debut I guess this was the debut for what Nuvia was going to bring to the table. Qualcomm wants to make an Apple Silicon competitor. They want to make Windows on ARM processors. They make a lot of other things. Qualcomm has kind of shifted. They were known for so long. They had the patents on CDMA. They were known for so long for mobile chips. They started to get into network chips, AI, Vision, XR, and desktop in the last few years, thanks to their new CEO. They promised, I'm watching this presentation, some 30% better. They promised better performance than the M2, a 4-nanometer system on a chip, lower power use, 30% less power. What do you think? You were there. You were sitting in the audience. Now, I know you got a free ticket to Maui, but I know you're also...
I did, yes.
You're going to be honest, and I know that.
It's really interesting because this isn't Qualcomm's first attempt to do Windows on ARM. Right?
No.
They've actually been trying to do this since 2017 maybe.
And in fact, they worked with Microsoft on the Surfaces, the 9 and the X with ARM chips, and the promised desktop performance and did not deliver.
They did not. Yeah. And you look back at those older platforms, because this was before I was at Intel, they had very clear advantages in battery life and connectivity, right? Every device came with LTE as an option, and the battery life was amazing. You could finally close a laptop and come back to it 3 days later and it would still turn on. But the performance was poor. And they found ways to kind of say, oh, we're as fast as a Core i5 in this little environment here and there. But the truth was that the software wasn't ready. They were doing a lot of software emulation at the OS level for different applications. And the performance of these, which were essentially trumped up cell phone chips, right, just didn't have what they needed. So, I think they recognized that. They bought Nuvia like you described. And this is where that reveal finally happened. And the performance claims, I told this when I was talking to them, I said, I think this is going to surprise a lot of people. They're not really expecting this. Cristiano at the beginning, who's the CEO of Qualcomm at the beginning, talked about, single threaded performance faster than the fastest Intel mobile processor today and faster than the M2 Max. Now, devil's in the details a little bit because those were single threaded results. And when they went to go compare to multi-threaded results, they kind of changed what the comparisons were. So that's why you said they're 30% faster than an M2 in that multi-threaded test, but not faster than an M2 Max. That would have beat it out. But their justification for that, right, is that they were comparing kind of like for like system configurations and pricing and everything that goes along with that. So, but
you're a master of benchmarking. I mean, that was a lot of what you did at PC Perspective.
Yeah.
They used, it was hard to tell because it was such fine print, but I've learned later, Geekbench, right?
Yes.
Was that an appropriate use for the single core anyway?
I think if you're trying to pick one test, Geekbench is probably as good as you can get because it encompasses lots and lots of subtests that kind of all add up into one score. Now, they didn't show me all the subtest scores, and I kind of poked on that a little bit because you could have one or two subscores that are really, really high, and maybe that offsets the average score or kind of the calculated total score. But we'll get that soon enough.
But by the way, that's what was my first thought too when they say things like, and this is one of their slides, best in class CPU performance, 50% faster peak multi-threaded performance versus M2. Or, we don't have any efficiency cores. They're all performance cores. And we speed step them up to 4.3 gigahertz. So when I see peak, I'm thinking, that is not sustained speed. This is... They did let
people see the hardware tested in real time.
Okay.
I was going to say they let people test it, but they didn't actually let people test it. They brought you into a room and they had a person there with like, here's the two laptop form factors they had. And, look, we're using the real software. We're just going to hit start and it would generate the result. So I have reasonable confidence in the performance numbers that they showed and that they talked about, but I think there's still a lot more testing to be done, a lot more applications to look at and things.
And we know they made these claims a year ago and didn't deliver. So I'm a little skeptical. Let's say skeptical.
I think skepticism is fine, right?
Yeah, I would love it if they came up with an ARM-based processor.
I would as well.
That Windows on ARM ran as well, for instance, as Windows on ARM runs on a Macintosh running Parallels. Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah. I think they would be hard pressed to walk back this performance that they have now. And all indications that I see from talking to other press and analysts that were at that event that have I just came back into the non-working at Intel game a couple of weeks ago, right? And so they've been talking to more people and OEMs and everything else. Seems like it's going to live up to that. And so now the question becomes like, what do they do with it, right? Are they going to get the right systems built with the right partners to really have an impact?
They had Microsoft there, they had Lenovo there, they had HP there. Of course, all of them make Windows on ARM machines now that are kind of suboptimal.
Yes.
We won't know till the summer of next year, right? This is going to be a while.
Before we have systems in like reviewers and consumers' hands, that's going to be May, June timeframe. Computex is a good indicator of it. They'll probably start marching out more performance data and more design win information and really talking about what the devices are going to look like. And it's not a coincidence, right? That they wanted to get this information out before Intel 14th gen processors launch, and before Intel Meteor Lake launches.
Well, it almost
the
felt
M3
like
comes out
before the M3, which is tomorrow.
Right.
It almost felt like, quick, get this out. I mean, it can't possibly have worked that way. But
it can't, I mean, no, I mean they've planned. I mean,
yeah,
you have to plan that event.
And nobody knew about
in
Apple's
advance.
event till 2 weeks ago. So yeah,
Correct. If anything, it felt to me like the Apple
Maybe
event was
Apple
just like, oh, we have to go respond to something on this. Yeah.
So they showed slides, almost Apple-like slides without much access information or 0 points, comparing both to Intel's i7, i9, and Apple's M2.
Yep.
I have the numbers look good. The memory bandwidth looks good. The power usage looks good. They're going to have Wi-Fi 7. Of course, they're going to have great radios. That's what Qualcomm does.
There's an interesting part about that though, is these Snapdragon X Elite parts do not have the Wi-Fi 7 or the 5G modules integrated on them. They are separate modules.
Okay.
So that is a shift from what they've done previously. Like before, they called it the always connected PC, right? Because they really leaned into that cellular connectivity. I noticed as I was listening to the presentations, I was like, it didn't really see much about it. And when I finally asked, it's they're separate modules, right? So OEM will have to choose to include them or not.
It's interesting because I've seen OEMs kind of stop putting cellular radios in their laptops as if people didn't want them. And I guess maybe if you're already paying for connectivity in a phone, you could hotspot. I don't know. I guess the market told them.
If you ever had a cell phone or a laptop with cell coverage with cellular data,
it's nice, isn't it?
You don't go back.
Yeah,
like it feels bad to go back.
You're
right?
always connected.
It just simplifies everything.
Yeah.
But I think the hurdle is really the carriers and what are they charging and how do you have to sign up and is it more complicated and those types of things. But then Qualcomm can probably charge, they can cut down on price quite a bit to these OEMs and say, hey, if you want to offer a 5G model to this, you could do so and charge whatever extra you want. But
I've often wondered why PC manufacturers backed off on that, even Microsoft. And I just assumed, they figured there's no market for it, but it's the cost.
Well, if you look at how they did it originally, like it was, think back to the iPad, right? The iPad LTE, you were paying what? $150 more for the device,
and
if
$10
you wanted
more a
cellular
month.
connectivity.
Yeah.
Well, $10 more. Yeah. I mean, your watch costs $10 a month.
How did you know?
Club Twit.
The idea that you would have to pay $150 to get this extra kind of connectivity you may or may not be using all the time.
Right.
I think it put a sour taste in people's mouths, and that same thing happened in the PC side.
Alex Wilhelm, if you want to call Uber Eats, you go right ahead.
Stop reading my Club Twit.
I see you complaining in Discord that you're hungry. Do you want a power bar?
No, I am very hungry, but I can't eat while I'm recording because then I will spit food. And also I can't eat before I record because then I sound all raspy.
Oh.
Leo, this is an exercise in me.
We'll wrap this up. I know you're bored by all this CPU stuff. I know.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I am is jealous because I just checked and my MacBook Pro that I'm on has an M1 Pro and they're coming out with the M3. Now I'm feeling out of date.
It's too better.
And that's much better. So I want it. But on the always on connectivity thing, I was a big fan of the direction we were going for a while of having laptops and everything just be connected to cellular networks. I haven't really thought about it much lately because Wi-Fi is so ubiquitous now. And I wonder if that's the thing that really precluded.
I still think it sucks. As somebody who just has been traveling recently, like every airport makes me, I got to watch some 60-second ad before I can get their 5 megabit internet service.
The security issue of getting on these open access points and
You guys leave the house?
I actually...
You see?
I now see your problem. Yes, because I've got gigabit Wi-Fi here.
I don't find tethering to my smartphone to be that much of a pain point. I mean,
you don't do it enough. You don't do it enough. I think that's
sometimes it finds the network, sometimes it doesn't. It's odd.
What about
I had to do it every day?
What about NVIDIA and AMD? Because the clock is ticking. Qualcomm got an extra year. They didn't do it last year. They're going to get an extra year. But NVIDIA and AMD both say they're going to do these kinds of, high-speed, low-power chips.
So I read the Reuters news and kind of some of the coverage afterwards. This still kind of surprises me a little because If you're
NVIDIA makes great. Like the Tegra was the X1 was a really
but they
good.
Stopped.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And like the PC business. So if you're NVIDIA, you're a trillion, 1 trillion, whatever trillion-dollar company. Are you really eager to get into a market that is, by all accounts, shrinking and low margin? And, you're already filling up your orders at TSMC for fab space with GPUs you can sell for $10,000 a piece. Do you really want to sell a $180, processor? I am quite sure that they're experimenting with it all the time, right? That there's a design team building something that's got, their own integrated GPU in it that would be fantastic. And, maybe they put it in laptops, maybe they're putting it in handhelds like the Steam Deck or, something like that. Maybe it's for the next Nintendo, maybe it's for the next PlayStation handheld. I don't know. And I'm sure AMD is doing the same. Even at Intel, they have teams that are looking at ARM-based designs, RISC-V based designs all the time. So I wonder how much of this is maybe over reading more into that than is necessary. I would be fairly surprised if these actually came to market. Because to your point, also this isn't until 2025 that this would happen, right? Because
that's such
Qualcomm's
great
exclusive.
insight. This is why I'm so glad to have you on this week, because I didn't really think about it, but you're absolutely right that the real market is in automotive, AI, perhaps XR, and mobile, not desktop computing.
Yeah, or even like the laptop computing, right? Laptops
Cristiano
are still good.
Did Amon, their new CEO, who really it is said took Qualcomm from being a mobile radio company to being this, like NVIDIA, this powerhouse in all these areas.
Mm-hmm.
Did he maybe make a strategic mistake focusing so much on desktop?
I don't think so, because of their partnership with Microsoft, right? If they didn't have that support, I think this would be a non-starter.
Yeah.
Right. But their move of they want to go from what he says is a communications company to a compute company.
Right.
That means, I don't want to just make modems that eventually Apple's going to displace me from. I want to be in as many different things as possible. Right. And the XR headsets and the partnership with Meta is critical to that. These laptop chips and the partnership with Microsoft is critical to that. And they don't, the edge compute kind of having a lot of AI acceleration at the edge, I think is going to be really important from them. What they don't play in right now is server, the data center space. That was one of the things they talked about when they bought Nuvia, but clearly not going to happen. So, or at least not happen anytime soon. But I don't think it was a mistake. I think they've got 0% market share, much like AMD, right? Every point of market share they take from Intel is a net positive for them.
It's billions.
And they're smaller companies. Like Intel is worth 10 times as much as Qualcomm probably. And they don't need that frustration maybe.
What is Intel focusing on? I mean, it's interesting. We've talked quite a bit about this idea that they've gone from being an integrated processor company where they both design and build to two different companies, a design company and a build company. In fact, at one point, they said, someday we'll make Apple's chips too, which everybody thought, wow, okay.
And that's Pat's vision, right? Pat Gelsinger came in as CEO. He came in with the idea of creating a US-based foundry company that all the top, that with leading foundry technology that NVIDIA and Apple and Qualcomm and everybody else uses. I think that's still their vision for what
the
Intel
geopolitical timing was good, because we want to reduce our dependence on China, and there's a lot of concern about Taiwan. Of course, Apple's chips are all made by TSMC. Who makes Qualcomm's chips? Is it TSMC?
For the most part, yep.
So they're all made in Taiwan, and everybody's looking at diversifying out of China. So maybe this is a real opportunity for Intel.
It is. If they get the technology, if they get the process nodes right, there's no reason why NVIDIA and Qualcomm wouldn't want to go do that, right? They love everybody. No matter if you're a consumer or if you're a company who's buying something, competition is good. It's going to drive better technology. It's going to drive better pricing, and that's what they want to see, competition for TSMC there. So there will always be this kind of being a proponent and supporting Intel in this endeavor, but they're not going to, sacrifice their profitability for the benefit of Intel or even, patriotism, really.
I want to take a quick break because Alex is starting to faint. and I don't want to lose him at this point. No, I'm just teasing you. But we will come back. And Alex, I have an assignment for you. We got quarterly results from pretty much everybody in the tech industry, and I know you follow this closely. I do not.
Yes.
And I want you to summarize all of Intel, Meta, Microsoft, Google. Tell me what it meant. But first, hey, we have a great promo to watch. Let's watch it together.
Welcome one, welcome all to our attempt not to break out of an escape room, but to break into a box. Oh, something happened, didn't it?
It's a magnet. I heard something. It's here.
Oh, this is so good. Oh, I am so impressed. Does it usually take this long?
That would be no.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Now reveal the key.
Previously on Twit. Twit News.
You've been watching our live coverage of the Snapdragon Summit keynote, in which Qualcomm announced, in a very big announcement, the new Snapdragon X Elite processor and its Orion CPU, claiming performance better than Apple's M2 processor.
Tech News Weekly.
Talking with Stu Tartarone, who is the principal member of technical staff at AT&T. Why are we talking to him? Because he was there when the first cell phone network was brought online 40 years ago.
We went out and we did a very professional market survey. The conclusion was that there was no market for this type of technology back in 1973.
This Week in Google.
Do you know that I was once named one of San Francisco's 100 most eligible bachelors by San Francisco?
Oh my, hold on. How is that not on
Were you
here?
single?
Okay, how is that not on here?
Oh no, it is on the card.
It's on there.
Formerly,
Oh, I'm sorry. I bragged about this.
formerly one of San Francisco's 100 most eligible bachelors.
Wait, do we have this article somewhere? Does it have like a fun photo of you?
Twit.
Does it have like a list of the things you like to
Don't
do? And
we
is it
wish.
like talk
Don't
about
we wish.
moral panics?
He likes long walks on the beach. I hope you watched our shows this week, and I hope you will watch the shows next week. By the way, if you don't subscribe to the newsletter, it's free, and it's a great way to keep up on what's going on the network. twit.tv/newsletter if you would like to subscribe. All right, just a few stories, but since you're so hungry, Alex, I loved this story. Apparently, there are restaurants all over the country named Near Me. Like, here's an example: Thai food near me. And you immediately got what they're trying to do. They're trying to fake Google, because how many people do searches for, I don't know, Thai food near me, or dentist near me, notary near me, plumber near me, businesses across the country. This is Mia Sato writing at The Verge. Pick names meant to outsmart Google search. They did.
Okay.
Okay. Did it work?
No, I mean, this is kind of brilliant, but I didn't think I was going to see the day when SEO went IRL.
Yes. SEO IRL. That's exactly right. Danny Sullivan, who runs, search communications for Google, said, no, don't get your hopes up. It's not going to make that much difference. But, hey, at least they got their picture in The Verge, and that's better than nothing. They say they did get a initial bump. The problem is, of course, people search for Thai food near me in many places, and the way the near me algorithm works isn't just the name of the place. Danny Sullivan, when asked, does it help? I doubt it. Said, I doubt it. Owners doing this might find success, but Google pulls in other data to serve results to users like location, reviews, or ratings, a, quote, hodgepodge of different things that are out there. And just the name by itself is probably not enough. Nevertheless, I am going to change the name of Twit to A Podcast Near You.
Jeez. What I loved about that Verge story was when they were doing some tests, they were like Googling for this in like Wisconsin and couldn't find it, but when they're in New York, they could, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a funny geographical
it
element
work quite,
to it.
Yeah, Google's they have ways. They have ways. So Google had a good quarter. 71% of their revenue comes from advertising. That's actually down a little bit.
So the Google or Alphabet earnings rundown in a nutshell is they were ahead on both revenue and profitability compared to street expectations, but Google Cloud, its cloud platform, didn't grow as fast as expected, and that sent the stock price down.
So the market punished them. They punished them. I love it.
Well, I mean, the market also has awarded them a more than $1 trillion valuation, so they're hardly in the stocks.
Yeah. Microsoft also did not do well in cloud. I thought they did well in cloud.
No, they did do well on cloud. They also beat on revenue and earnings per share, and their cloud results came in a little bit better than expected. Faster growth rate there. I think it was 29% for the Azure and other bucket.
I was going to say their Surface Group was down 22% or something like that, I think.
But all PCs, as you pointed out earlier, Ryan, all PCs are down. After the boom of COVID, where PC market took off, everybody got a computer, I guess.
What was interesting, right? Because the OS group said that they were back to pre-pandemic levels of PC sales, the software division. Where
that's weird. Is that a leading indicator? Maybe OEMs are buying Windows licenses because they're going to put them in machines that they're going to sell?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So maybe that's an indicator that the PC market will pick up as soon as those Qualcomm chips come out. How about Amazon? They had a pretty good cloud quarter, I imagine. They're the winners in cloud, aren't they?
They're the market share leaders, but the growth rate at AWS is in the kind of low teens now, if I recall correctly, and that's quite a lot lower than we're seeing from the smaller players. So I would say Microsoft continues to consume share. I would say Amazon's basically defending share, and then Google Cloud's a distant third, and everyone else is dying. We're going to wind up in kind of like not a duopoly, but kind of an oligopoly of hyperscale cloud providers. And I think it's pretty clear that's going to be Microsoft and Amazon at the top, and then Google kind of running third.
How about Meta? Did Meta have a good quarter?
If my memory serves, they did. I think advertising results were a little bit better than expected. And in fact, advertising results across kind of all the major tech companies were pretty strong. One thing I didn't see coming, 5 years ago was that Amazon would become a leading provider of just advertising, and Microsoft has its own ad products, and pretty much everyone but Apple is the way it kind of feels right now. But I'm sure they'll get into the game. But I think it's weird that I'm talking about tech earnings and ads are as big a component as we thought, because, I mean, frankly, does anyone like them?
No. And what's interesting is podcast advertising is tanking across the board. Gimlet's gone. WNYC's pulling back. So many podcast networks, and Spotify, which made a huge investment in podcasts, is now saying, no, forget podcasts. It's audiobooks. Yeah, that's it. Audiobooks of the future.
Good luck competing with Amazon on that.
Yeah, I think Amazon pretty much owns that.
The thing about Meta's actually rehiring. I know somebody who got laid off from Meta back in the big layoffs and then just got their job back.
Yeah.
I don't know how common that's going to be, but
Meta had 23% growth. And again, as you said, Alex, in ads, profit doubled. Boy, you wouldn't expect that from Meta. They made the big bet, $10 billion a year bet on mixed reality, on Quest. But all of this money is coming from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp.
Yep. It turns out the core business at Meta is fantastic. They have a great model. It has grown forever. They are massively profitable, and they can afford to have the world's most expensive hobby, which is...
There you go.
Pissing away $10 billion a year on VR. Shout out to them, though, for keeping it up. I mean, if it wasn't for Meta just hosing money into that area, what would we have? Not much.
Well, we might have Apple. Apple seems to be spending some money. Of course, we're going to be covering the Apple event tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. That will be midnight UTC. And it's some speculation. This is Apple's first primetime event. Now, admittedly, it's just a TV show. They're inviting a very small number of people to an event in New York. I think the same people got that box. But
seems odd, right? Though it still feels weird.
Yeah, and
during Monday Night Football.
So why Monday Night Football? You're against primetime. Why would Apple do this? And I think maybe it was Nilay Patel or John Gruber. Somebody speculated this is a test. Because the next big event, the one that Apple really cares about, is just a few months off. It's the Vision Pro headset. And they're trying to figure out, should we do that in the daytime or should we make a big prime time splash out of this? And so that actually makes sense to me. That this is. Will you watch an Apple video in the prime time when football is on?
The question is who going to watch it? Are they trying to get mass audience, like general consumers, to watch these videos?
Yeah, we know they're going to have the press no matter what, right?
Yeah,
they're going to get Lamar Wilson no matter what.
I would say going to telling the mass the mass market that you want to sell them. I don't know, I forget how much it was, $3,500. Headset is maybe not ideal. You want to filter that through somebody. Maybe you don't want to filter that through press, and maybe that's why they would want to go do it directly.
Yeah, exactly. It was Alex Krantz at The Verge. Apple's getting ready for prime time. She's managing editor of the Vergecast. It does kind of make sense if these events are now for consumers, right? If Apple can get consumers excited about a product in the reality distortion field, and these are beautifully produced, really nice events, maybe they should do it in prime time.
Most of their announcements are basically television shows.
Yes.
Certainly since the beginning of the pandemic. And, I would sometimes go to Apple Park. I haven't lately, and I feel, except for that 2 minutes of hands-on you get afterward, or the remote chance of running into Tim Cook, I just assume watch it on my screen.
I think what'll be interesting to watch for, and I encourage, we'll be doing it. Micah Sargent and I and Alex Lindsay, and I think he's going to bring some office hours people with him as well. We'll be watching it tomorrow on the stream. But I bet you there'll be some production value to this. This will be more like a TV show. They're tying it into Halloween. Celine Dion as a pumpkin. I don't know. Something's going to happen. Huh?
Maybe you can watch it. Maybe you can watch on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
Along with
Well, you can. You already can. We know that. By the way, they'll stream it. They do always stream it on Apple TV Plus. So I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe
I'll watch it in my living room.
Yeah, on your big screen.
The magic is gone. Like, these videos are well produced. They do have high production values, but I just can't tell you how much I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I used to never miss a minute of an Apple keynote because it felt very important. Yeah. And now it's just a collection of bright, happy, shiny people just telling me stuff that's been well rehearsed. It just feels much more like an infomercial than a technology keynote. And I know that sounds like a fine line, and I'm kind of being old fuddy-duddy about this, but I just don't care as much. And I wonder if, going back to the earlier point about media versus influencers, if they're just not targeting us anymore.
They're not.
I'm just not there.
I think it's clear. And I also don't think they care that much about influencers. I think they care about real people. And they want to create, they want to see if they can create buzz.
It was clearly a direction in my time at Intel that our goal was to talk directly to the consumer. It's a little bit more difficult for Intel because other than box CPUs that you build a desktop out of, they didn't actually sell things to a consumer, right? They sell to OEMs, and then OEMs have to build a machine and do all that stuff. But there's definitely the idea from marketing departments that owning the relationship to the end consumer is incredibly valuable. And a lot of times, if you've got snide comments coming from reporters and media and even influencers, right? Maybe that's not important anymore.
I think that's
at the risk of being a snide reporter, I'll up Alex one. I don't care, largely because, with the exception of once in a while, like Vision Pro, the announcements are boring. Do I really want to look at the latest and greatest iPhone, which is only slightly later and greater than last year's latest and greatest iPhone? In most of these announcements these days, because these industries are so mature, these product categories are so mature, that the improvements are so incremental that they're not that exciting to write about or to cover.
You just proved Ryan right. They don't want to go after you because that's all you're going to say is you're going to snark and groan and moan and say, it's just like another iPhone. What's the big deal?
If you've never seen an iPhone before, sure.
Yeah. That's right. See, you say, they don't want the snark, but the snark's valid. It's because, well,
of course it's true. Of course it's true.
Well, sorry for advocating for the truth, Leo. I'm over here caring.
But
still.
I think Ryan's right that the companies want to disintermediate. They want to go direct to consumers. And if you get a chance to have an hour ad in prime time, how many people watch these? 10 million, 20 million people watch? That's valuable. And you're not even paying for ad time for this.
So what you're really saying is that Tim Cook doesn't do as good a job on us with the reality distortion field as Steve Jobs did. So he's got to do it on the public.
I think that's true.
We're all immune to it.
I think Tim Cook, I think Steve appealed to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was a master of it. And we loved it. We ate it up, and we got sucked in I personally got sucked in by the reality distortion field every time.
Every time. I know.
Tim is not, and by the way, remember the last time Apple's event, they had a skit with Octavia Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think you're going to see more of that. It's not going to be Tim Cook on the stage. It's going to be entertainment. I think you might see celebrities. You might see skits. I think Apple's trying to make a primetime TV show. I agree with Alex Krantz. We'll see. Do you know that?
Wait. So you're telling me, Leo, this is going to be a worse version of SNL?
Yes. Oh, yeah, because the Octavia Spencer skit was leaden. It was terrible.
Like, SNL is funny only half the time. Apple's going to be funny 0% of the time, especially when they try to produce shows, you're not allowed to criticize China or AI, as Jon Stewart learned the other week.
Do you want to guess how many people watched Apple's events, an Apple event last year on YouTube? 30 million people watched Apple's event on phone event last year.
Friends numbers.
That is Friends numbers. Yeah. That is Friends numbers.
The only brand that can compete with that is Elon Musk's brand and his Legion of Fans, who do turn up for things. I mean, we snark again, but Elon does have a massive following, and when he does like Tesla Owners Day and people show up in their Teslas to like beep their horns and give a speech,
he's got his stands.
People turn up.
Absolutely true.
I mean, that's rare. Like, name another brand that actually meets that level of consumer love. I mean, Disney maybe back in the day.
Skyline Chili.
The Bengals.
Don't make him hungrier than he already is. He might eat the microphone.
Is it the Bengals or the Bengals?
The Bengals.
Bangles. like dangly ears? Is that what it is? Okay.
I want to create a bumper sticker for Tesla owners which says, "I bought it before I know what a jerky was."
I've seen that bumper sticker.
Somebody's done it?
Yeah. They've done it. Yes.
Oh my God. Shoot. There goes my fortune.
That's Larry Magid. ConnectSafely.org. He's president and CEO there at Larry Magid on all the platforms. Always a pleasure. Larry's been a good friend for years. In fact,
always enjoy
you
it,
and I
so
standing in front of down there at Yerba Buena Center when Apple announced the iPad in 2011.
I remember that.
Yep, you and I sitting on lawn chairs.
I think when they announced the Abacus, we were covering.
Yeah, that was the last event I was invited to, by the way. Ryan Shrout, so good to see you. I welcome you back from the dark side. You are now once again in the light. And if you want to come back and do This Week in Computer Hardware, you let me know, because
all right, I appreciate it.
You're the best.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be back. It'll be fun. But yeah.
Go have a nice heaping bowl of 5-way Skyline chili.
I got to drive across the street to it, I guess, now, yeah.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
And
you in the Midwest because he didn't say walk.
And yeah, right. You, Alex Wilhelm, you go down to the East End, walk down to the East End and have a giant hamburger. I'll be thinking of you. Alex Wilhelm writes at TechCrunch. You do the podcast, too. We should give you credit for that.
Oh, yes. If you want to hear all about venture capital, tune into Equity, available on all fine podcast platforms everywhere. Now my producer will give me a pat on the head.
Equity, a fine podcast featuring Alex Wilhelm.
Leo, can I do a quick pitch for my new podcast?
Oh, you have one too?
It's called "Are We Doing Tech Right?"
Oh, wow.
And we interview all sorts of people, including people like Vint Cerf, and we're going to be having Mark Cuban on, Al Gore, trying to look at all the pioneers in tech to figure out what they all did right or wrong, and other folks as well. So we'd love to have folks tune into that.
You already had Vint Cerf on?
We already had Vint on.
He's great.
We already interviewed Leonard Kleinrock, another one of the founders of the internet.
Yeah.
He'll be on soon. We're talking to we're talking to Al Gore in a couple of months about
fantastic.
How he invented the internet.
And this is through Connect Safely, but I'm sure you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Yep. Are We Doing Tech Right? So there's Equity. Are We Doing Tech Right? And Ryan, what's the name of your new podcast?
TBD.
Yeah.
No, nothing yet.
Go Bengals, you son of a...
Yeah, of course, yeah. The Cincinnati Bengals football podcast.
Yes. Hey, it's great to see all three of you. Thank you so much for a great episode with lots of insight. It's nice to have smart people on the show. Have a great evening, Alex. Enjoy your time with your beautiful baby. And,
oh no, I missed that. She's asleep.
Oh, all right. Well, get out of here. Get out of here.
No,
get out of here. Go have a hamburger or something. Go live it up. We do Twit every Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Western time, Pacific time. That'd be 5 to 8 in the evening on the East Coast. It's 2100 UTC, but I shouldn't say that because we are currently on summertime. Starting next week, we're back on standard time, so we will be at 2200 UTC. 2200 UTC. You can figure out what that means in your neck of the woods. I know UTC doesn't change, but we do. So if that's, and I only say that if you want to watch it live, which really a small number of people do. The live stream is at live.twit.tv. You can listen or watch. There's live audio and video. And the reason I say that is sometimes people like to interact with us either in the chat room or on our Club Twit Discord, and I'm paying attention to both, and that's nice, and that's a good way to kind of give us some feedback. So if you want to do that, do. Otherwise, it's a podcast. You can listen or watch whenever you want. Audio and video available at the website, twit.tv, or on the YouTube channel dedicated to This Week in Tech. That's video, obviously. Or subscribe in your favorite podcast catcher, and then you'll get it automatically as soon as it's done, just in time for your Monday morning commute. Thank you for joining, everybody. We will see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.
This is amazing.
Doing the Twit.